Here's something that we touched on a little bit earlier, Scott, and this is a really long question, so I'm going to summarize it here. It's from Stolfiz, and he's talking about the difference between um, yeah.
I've gone overseas. I try to catch it, whatever, because sometimes I go overseas for, because we're announcing something. So like a couple times I've been over to Gamescom in Cologne, and
yeah.
one of those times there was an Overwatch tournament going on. So when I didn't have any responsibilities, interacting with press or anything like that, I would just go over and watch Overwatch. Similar kind of thing. When I went over to Korea, I went we were going to have an event in Seoul, and this is about the time that Diva had her short. But there was actually the week before there was a World Cup qualifier, and I was like, well, if I'm going to fly to Korea, I might as well get there a little bit early and watch some World Cup qualifications.
Yeah, double dip.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always an amazing time. So watching Overwatch, whether it's online, via VOD, and especially live Overwatch, I think is an amazing thing that this year has been a little bit awkward for that, of course, but I think in the future, all the events that we have had for Overwatch League with the live seeing fans have all been really super exciting. I went to one of the Valiant ones last year. I wanted to experience that. It's so much fun. Seeing Overwatch at a high level played in front of hundreds of thousands of people.
Is it more wild to see the pros try and break your game by playing the best compositions possible, or do you just get kind of crazy feelings from watching the game that you've helped create and played at such a high level?
Inevitably, I just turn into a fan. I'm cheering with everyone. It's regardless of which two teams are playing, it's I'm just here to see amazing plays. And Overwatch, at this kind of high level with these great players, it creates those plays pretty constantly. So
it does.
It's always a lot of fun just watching Overwatch.
Yeah, the stuff they do, the players, I think I don't want to say it goes taken for granted, but I mean, I know we like to play a lot of ranked, and we get motivated by watching some of the amazing things that happen in Overwatch League. We try and do that in ranked, and it's not as easy. To do it.
Sometimes it fails pretty spectacularly, actually. Yeah.
Sometimes you think, hey, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna play like Doha, and I'm gonna gain a few SR, and you turn around, you're like Bren, you're back in gold, you're trending down towards silver. It's tough out there. It's hard because we're called plat chat, but now some of us aren't even in plat anymore.
That's true. I'm in masters for support.
Oh, come on!
Congratulations.
Well,
thank you, Scott.
No, Scott, don't congratulate. Don't support this. We didn't tell you. We brought Scott on to talk to you about your player behavior. Okay, yeah. All right, that's fine. The support play. I'm sure they ever saw how Josh uses Transcendence. It's not as intended by it's a personal speed boost, pretty much.
Hey, but that's the beautiful thing about game design, is that sometimes you design something and the players use it in an unintended way that creates magical moments. And that's what I'm doing. I'm creative and I'm magical. I'm taking what Scott and the rest of the development team have built, and I'm adding my own twist.
Right. So we already have the game. We're already 70% in the first points. Dallas, I mean, they're looking pretty good to take this first stage on Busan against Toronto. This match also, by the way, give a shout out to the Dallas Fuel and Toronto Defiant, also doing co-streams of this match as well. You can check those out. At the same time, just open up 4 or 5 tabs. Just turn everything on. Make sure you keep the audio on this one though. This is the one that,
But yes, support your local scenes. Support your team. If you've got a team, support them. And also, really quickly, it's support tier 2. Watch. There's some amazing Overwatch being played. I know it's Korea Contenders just started up. A lot of really awesome games there. Watch all that.
Yeah, there's some players in this match as well. This is a really nice match to look at, like a blend of tier 2 players that have come up and also some really long-term established talents. I mean, players like Logix and Numlocked and Nevix and Cruiser Crew have been around forever, but then they're playing alongside Zik, who's come straight out of tier 2, and then there's Paintbrush on the other side, who's a fairly newer player as well, and Onigod's been around for a while, but was in tier 2 up until recently. So it's really cool to see in Overwatch League that blend of players that have been around for so long, but also people that have literally gone through the path to pro and ended up as pro players.
I was gonna even started at like before contenders just being noticed on the ladder, right? Like we've had like I think after the season 1, we've had a bunch of players who kind of worked their way up from the ladder to contenders. Some even skipped contenders and went straight to like a pro team basically on the bench. Where I think you see, because there's so many times on in games in general, right, where somebody on the ladder, you're like, oh, that guy's a ladder superstar. Then like, you're like, oh, no, never. Like, look at Ons for the shock, right? Like he doesn't have like a huge experience in contenders, has some, but he's just like a player they found who just had sick aim that they found on the ladder, which is awesome to see. Just kind of as Overwatch League's gone on, is a note with it kills both supports with a self-destruct. I mean, that is a backbreaker right there and a half for Toronto. It's where are you from originally, Scott? Are you from Cali or?
First, like, high school and college. Up to then, I was from Texas, Gulf Coast, in Austin. Moved out here. Like during like when I was in college, like went to Cal State Fullerton out here briefly, and then started working at Blizzard. So I've been at Blizzard for a long time. It's been like 23 years.
Oh, so. Nice. I was gonna say
23 years. I had no idea.
That's longer than. How old are you, Josh? You're
I'm 26. I mean, I was 3 years old when you joined Blizzard. That's actually insane.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh has the same amount of hair as when he just came out of when he just became born as well.
No, it's been really crazy seeing Blizzard grow from a really small company. Like I started in tech support. I didn't start as a game designer. I started in tech support, answering phones, trying to help people install Warcraft 2 on their DOS machines. Right? I think it's like not just 23 years at Blizzard, but just 23 years period. Like how much the internet has changed things, or PCs, esports and just all this like crazy stuff. It's been quite an interesting ride.
Yeah, like he lived without broadband, dude. I remember telling my mom no, pick up the phone because the internet would not.
I still did that. Yeah, I was living in the UK. We didn't have good cable internet for a long time. I used to.
I was asking where you're from because as a New Yorker, even though we don't have biases, I'm still like, there's still a bit of New York in me where I'm like, man, screw Boston any chance I get. I'm like, oh man, is there any like rivalry? But you have to. If you're from New York, you can't cheer for Boston.
No,
it's not possible. So
there could be physical consequences actually.
Yeah, right.
Do you have a favorite team? Do you have a team that you root for?
Not really, and that's something that's actually interesting because I love sports, and growing up, certainly like. I remember going to like Houston Astros games with my dad, watching a lot of Houston Oilers, or now Tennessee Titans, those kinds of football games. My dad was really passionate about it, so I became passionate about it, but I never really necessarily had a strong team because part of that was that like when I moved to Austin, like Austin doesn't really have a professional team, and then like I moved to California, so that sort of severs a little bit. So I've never really had like the like. Writing a particular team, it's like I'm writing this team till till I die, and my kids are gonna like root for this team. My grandkids are gonna root for this team. I haven't really had that, but the nice thing is that like it just means that for me it's just I'm just looking to see like, hey, I don't really care about the teams. I just want to see like the best play possible.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's a lot of people like that in Overwatch, actually. There's a lot of people that have multiple teams that they root for. Especially, someone conducted a survey, someone called Divided by Zero conducted a survey recently across a bunch of different Western fans in the competitive Overwatch community, I think it was. And kind of asked them about why they were fans of certain teams as well. It was super interesting to look at. And Chengdu Hunters were like by far and away, I think, everyone's second most favorite team. People just love them.
Yeah, it's hard not to like them. I mean, for the longest time they're underdogs. Everyone knows the underdog story. I think that's why, you know, last year everyone was so excited about Shanghai when they made that massive turnaround from season 1 to season 2, and now they're ruining APAC, you know, like 27-2 or whatever they are. They're playing really awesomely. So yeah, Chengdu is like their underdog. They play differently. It's like you watch a Chengdu game, you know you're going to see something you're not going to see like on any other like game that week.
Yeah, you know, people who come to our channel, that they get super angry because we put Chengdu in their own zone in the power rankings called the Chengdu zone, and they're like, why is Chengdu? Because I was like, well, there's no way we can predict what Chengdu does. Chengdu just they go out and they do their thing. So looking at this game, Toronto's actually made a bit of a comeback here at this point. So
yeah, they have. They've done a really good job. I think the Toronto Defiant were running this Sombra composition against Dallas Fuel's Double Shield. And it's really interesting how the meta has developed over the last few weeks with these balance changes and with the hero pools that we've got going on at the moment as well. Because it seems like the game always seems, Scott, from my point of view as a caster, to be just on like a knife's edge of balance. Where, okay, it might seem like some composition is just locked in, but as soon as you tweak with like one hero being out or something, or you make like the recent nerf to Genji and now he's not available this week, it suddenly seems to open up the pool massively, and like the teams have to go through this entire learning process again of what's good.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, the heroes, like, they haven't been playing. They're still good, they just haven't been playing them lately. I think it was one of the really, I remember like kind of recently you saw, again, I think it was, I don't know if it was Chengdu, but it was like, was it Late Young, who's like, has an amazing Zarya.
Yeah.
And Zarya hadn't been in the meta for a long time, but all of a sudden it's like Zarya became a thing for a couple weeks, and like everyone remembered it's like, everyone remembered it's like, wait, Zarya's kind of an amazing hero, and Late Young was dominating with it, and like, oh yeah, and like, I'm sure there were like players across like multiple teams who were like, I actually have a pretty godly Zarya too, why not put me in, coach? You know, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, there's so many different heroes that provide so many different unique play styles, and yeah, you see all these, that like one hero becomes not meta, and it could open up all these heroes that were just underneath the surface of the water, you know, popping up and going about, what about me?
Yeah.
Me?
And I think you've had a lot of like what we're seeing right now with Toronto and Dallas happen this year as well, where Dallas definitely feels more comfortable like playing double shield type compositions, and Toronto, they're like, well, you know, we think we can beat double shield with playing a little bit more aggressive, where in years past we saw a lot of like mirror type of compositions, like we're gonna run this, and we've seen that this year as well. But we've also seen, I think, with hero pools and some of the more aggressive balance, teams playing to more of their strengths, which I think is awesome, because we get to see heroes which, I mean, before this season we haven't really seen be played and make a huge impact, like Ashe, for instance, right? Like, I know seeing Logix play it here, but like Ashe is a hero that before this season didn't see a ton of like love in the Overwatch League, but like for me personally as a player, Ashe is one of the most fun heroes to play. Like the gun just feels awesome to use, like Dynamite. I love throwing Bob out there, and you know, watching my Bob get slept and then somebody on the opposing team accidentally wake it up and like kill a few players is always one of my highlight moments. But it's just awesome, I think, to see like so many different teams experimenting so far this year.
Yeah, and like Ashe is a case where we did make some tweaks to like how she reloaded, how that felt, like some of the gun mechanics worked. But those weren't like massive like number changes or really any number changes at all. It was just like we made the gun feel better, and then D.Va came, you know, wasn't in the meta as much. So again, like I remember like people telling me it's like, oh, Ashe is never going to be meta because D.Va eats Dynamite constantly, right? It's like and like so much of her kit is tied into Dynamite. It's like, well, if there's not so much D.Va, all of a sudden Dynamite becomes super huge, and like there was so much like death ball, like close range comms where Dynamite could hit all these different, multiple heroes at once, and all of a sudden it was like, it's Ashe's time to sign.
Yeah, and stuff you never thought of as like combining Halt with the Dynamite, right? And then even like we talked about earlier, like Winston now comboing with Zarya, like so many different combinations so far this season. that we've seen a ton of. I think also like this hero pool definitely like threw things out of whack for teams because they've been playing so long with Tracer and Genji and Zarya in the mix that you're just kind of like, oh well, what do we do now?
Sure, but again, it's like, I mean, there's like all these, but like there's still like a lot of heroes that like they've been playing all throughout this season. I mean, you look at like these comps, they've been playing these heroes all this season. You know, it's, Sombra I think is actually like a very interesting like pick at the pro level because she's so good when pros play her because they can make such awesome use of not just the hacks and the EMP but just the information.
Yeah,
just like the scouting, like that's something that like, so we see like online where Sombra's win rate has actually never really been that good, but at pro play she's always kind of been like pretty amazing. I mean, especially I think you see like in Asia, like you've seen like Sombra being more of the meta for a much longer time, and I think now we're finally starting to see a lot more of like the North American team starting to pick her up. But like
that must be challenging.
Yeah,
right. Like that must be really challenging for you guys to, when different parts of the player base play the heroes in such different ways as well.
Yeah, no, totally, and it's something we have to like always be mindful of, like what's the most powerful a hero can be, given the, you know, perfect play, given like OWL levels of play, and you see it even within OWL, you know, those transcendental players, when they get a hold of a hero, what can they do with that hero, right? Because I mean, you talk about like you know, OWL teams, it's like not every OWL team has the like god tier, you know, Sombra.
No,
not all of them had god tier Genji. So when Genji became like, you know, really strong, some teams suffered from that. So I mean, as you know, the meta changes and that, we'll see like heroes come into play, come or not. Hero, you know, some teams they can roll the punches better, but I think, you know, the teams, I think what we're seeing now is the teams that like, you know, are building their rosters for flexibility, you know, finding like, but at the same time finding those players that are like can make big impacts, you know, it's like can make plays out of nowhere. Those are the teams that seem to find success in Overwatch.
That's why so many teams are trying to sign Sideshow when the Florida Mayhem brought it in. They were looking for that high impact player who could really change the course of a game. They were looking for that.
Gas me up. Gas me up. That's what I am.
We had a Pocket in the chat. So Pocket, I saw John Spector, Marissa in the chat. John's checking in because when we brought John on, we started asking about like his favorite movies and baseball and stuff. He's
my goodness.
like, oh man, what are they gonna do with poor Scott today? He's looking out to see if there's any type of revenge questions. But no, it's Dallas who takes map number 1. I think this series, we kind of talked a little bit about it early. This series could be close, like this could be back and forth. It could be a little bit of a blowout. I do think that with how Logix plays on the Widow, like if there's kind of Widow matchups, I think there's a possibility where it'll be much closer.
Yeah, we've seen Logix pop off.
Oh yeah.
And you know, totally turn matches, so yeah, we'll have to see how it goes today.
Yeah, he's huge. He's one of those players where sometimes you look at what he's able to do and it seems... It just seems crazy, like the level of raw talent that he has to be able to pull off crazy plays, like when he used to play Tracer back in the day, and now when he plays the Widowmaker and stuff. It's difficult. It's interesting, Scott, because I know that you're interested, because we've had discussions about this before, in player development throughout ranked and like focusing on getting better and how people do that and how people use an SR system. That's part of what your job entails. And it's a lot of, I think, why people watch pro play as well is to get better at how they play ranked too. And it's weird what you can pick up from different players, because if I watch Logix and the things that he does, a lot of the time I watch a player like that and I'm like, well, I can't hit those shots. How can I learn from this? I can't take this back to my own play at all.
It's a joke. It's like, you want to get better at Overwatch? Just click heads better. No, there's way more to it than that.
Yeah, clearly Josh isn't paying attention to the position these players are in when they're clicking the shots.
Of course, there's other things like that as well, for sure. But you know, there's some players, and that's why I'm using Logix as an example, that just have such insane aim that they can pull off things that other people wouldn't be able to at lower levels as well.
Yeah. No, it's something that we feel like it's really important. I mean, the competitive play, it's interesting because yes, it's an expression for some people it's, you know, winning, 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 and more winning, and that's what's super important. But I think if you go too far into that, it can potentially, you can get very worked up about it, and when you don't win, and to be honest, when you're playing competitively, you're going to win and lose roughly about 50% of the time if the matchmaker is doing a pretty good job of matching teams of equivalent
that's the
skill.
whole point, right?
That's right. It's what it's trying to do. It's just like, hey, you're about this skill. Why don't you play against someone of a same skill? Because then you'll have a really awesome match. So, truth is, you're going to win and lose roughly about 50% of the time. So, winning feels great. Everyone loves that. So, one of the things that we try to work on, and we've been talking about internally, is like how to actually make losing feel better. And I think one of the big ways is, instead of concentrating just on winning and losing, actually start thinking about like, hey, how am I going to improve as a player when I play this, like, you know, competitive match of Overwatch? If you go into a competitive match not with just the idea of like, oh, I'm going to win this, but hey, I'm going to play cowboy and I'm going to try to like improve my positioning so I don't die as much. I don't put myself in bad positions. You know, because that's a lot of like getting from bronze to gold is just preventing, you know, needless deaths.
Yeah.
You know, deaths where you're not helping your team. It's like you're going in like solo, you're not working together. Like there's so much very simple things, you know, in terms of like, don't stream in, you know, try to fight actually 6-on-6, don't fight 2v6, you know, learn when to like disengage. You know, there's so many of those kinds of things that, again, I think pro players take for granted. For them, it's very easy because it's been ingrained into them. But like for a lot of players, it doesn't cross their mind because they're having so much fun just, you know, clicking at people, using their abilities. The heroes are fun, and they're just having, you know, an awesome time. And so just going into that mindset, going in with like competitive play with a mindset more of it's like, hey, how can I improve? Like, what am I going to get out of this, regardless of whether we win or lose? Like, is there a goal I have set for myself?
Yeah.
And that's a very like healthy way, I think, to approach, you know, playing Overwatch competitively. And it's something we want to try to like in the future give you more tools to work on those kinds of things. Like if you want to like, you know, have a goal of like, hey, I want to improve my accuracy with 76 rifle, you know, being able to potentially like track your accuracy across multiple games. We
right
definitely want to do
graph where it shows compared to your normal performance or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we want to do more with like match history. You saw like we did a pretty actually very recently we updated the player profile.
Yeah,
that looks really good now. Actually, I really like that redesign.
Yeah, we improved like how the stats are presented, but like how we presented those stats and the stats that we put there, like we put in literally like largely like right before the game shipped. You know, I think there's a lot of updating to do there.
See you later.
Match history. So I think there's a lot of things that we can help do for that. So you can, when you play competitively, again, you can play to improve. And that's something that I think everyone, regardless of how skilled you are, whether or not you're a bronze player, whether or not you're a GM player, you can always play to improve and like find those goals for yourself. So that's something that we really want to work on because we think it just makes for a much healthier game. You know, something you can have fun and don't always just get like, man, why did I lose that game? Because whenever you start thinking about like just losing, it's like you start like coming up with like excuses and reasons. Oh, it's my teammates, they made these like all these horrible plays.
Something specific?
What if I didn't have, you know, just all these like things that we as humans, we don't like to blame ourselves, and that's natural and honest, and no one likes doing that. But like, you know, concentrating on the things you can do well and you can improve on, and don't worry so much about the rest of all the rest of the things. That'll all get worked out because as you improve, your SR will go up. You know, if you're actually like if you're getting better with heroes, you know, if you're like dying less, that correlates pretty highly with higher SR. We've done the numbers. We've done the math. You know, it's like, so yeah. I mean, again, the things that we're working on. Again, it's just trying to like further incentivize that mindset.
Well, that's awesome to hear though, because there's a lot of plays, I think, like you mentioned, that go into winning a game that don't necessarily like reflect in stats either. No, like a Widowmaker, like on, let's say, Temple of Anubis, like making it difficult for players to get through a choke and whatnot, and being able to hold that angle for an extended period of time. like you may not finish in terms of damage like near the top, but you kind of did your job for the team.
Yeah.
So to kind of and sometimes players are like, well, like I think it kind of gets into a cycle where it's like, oh well, I'm a DPS player, I'm supposed to have this amount of damage, this amount of final blows. Like, well, in certain situations on certain heroes, it's okay to just kind of hold the angle and just deny a whole area, right?
Yeah,
where
totally.
I think that's where players don't realize like the value in terms of some of those heroes. Like you'll see somebody play like a Sombra, right? Like we talked about Sombra earlier, and you see Dallas playing the Sombra here, and they're like, oh, you know, we need more damage, we need more damage. It's like, well, like we could probably like use our Sombra and play better around that, right? Like instead of immediately going to let's just play the highest damage as we possibly can and just kind of go in, where I think it does tend it can be difficult, I think, for some players trying to rank up, because let's say you're a Sombra main and you're playing correctly, but you need everybody to kind of work with you in a hero in that capacity. So
yeah, and here's something else, and I think this is pretty easy to like forget. You can be playing awesome. Your team can be playing awesome, but sometimes you lose because the other team just played better.
yeah,
You know, it's not because, and that's again another thing that we're like always super quick. And I think, you know, it's, you know, it happens, I think, when you're doing like, you know, an analysis even like a pro level. It's like, well, which team made the more mistakes? You know, it's like, what could they have done? Like, where did it turn because like a player did something wrong? And like, so many times it's like, well, it didn't turn because it did anything wrong. It's because this other player like just did something crazy and amazing, or just had a really good day.
Yeah, and sometimes you just can't do anything about that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, Dallas has known that scenario because they played with Decay earlier on in the season as well. And he won them a lot of games where there wasn't anything that the other team could do. It was just Decay being incredible.
Yep.
yeah,
And something,
just a player, yeah.
and like on a day-to-day basis, there's more variation in the quality of your play than I think everyone would like to admit. Like some days I can't hit the broadside of a barn for free, and I'm like, man, I'm just not feeling it. And then other days I'm just like, oh man, I'm feeling great. I'm just like clicking heads, you know, everything else. And like, everyone is like that.
Yeah.
On the enemy team, your team, it's like, and you know, so sometimes you'll have a good game, sometimes you'll have a great game, sometimes you'll have a bad game. Like, SR doesn't really reflect that truth.
Sure. Yeah. I did some broadcasts with Spice Adams where we were kind of walking him through playing Overwatch. It was very funny. But also he was talking about his time being in the NFL, and he said that what his coaches used to tell him, something that really stuck with him, is you never stay the same. In every match, you're always a little bit better or a little bit worse than the previous match that you played. You're never the same. And it's about identifying those areas about like where you are better or worse. And it just admitting and understanding that there is constant variance in how you play. And obviously that's going to be super challenging for you guys when you're trying to create an SR system that reflects that human variance that just happens when you play any competitive sport, but also Overwatch.
Yeah. And to be honest, that's something that like SR isn't a very good reflection of, because it's the one number, right? Sure. And everyone tends to like focus like in on that. But I mean, it's definitely something you see at the pro level. You know, how often? I mean, how many like NFL player interviews? Like I can count the number I've seen where it's like, well, what happened out there? And the player will say like, well, they just made more plays.
Yeah. Sometimes the other team just
it feels like a meme, but in reality, it's like, no, that's actually the truth.
Right. I mean, yeah, look at like even in the Overwatch League this year, we have a few teams that are kind of like stuck towards the bottom, and like they'll play teams close, but I'm sure if you ask them like, well, what happened? Like, why couldn't you guys get over the hump? It's like, well, the other team just made more plays. Like they just have like players that just go crazy that you can't really do much about. Like there's something you just can't prepare for, right? Like I always think back to the one clip that we had, I think it was like Carpe on Widow, and I think it was against Boston, but I think it was like almost the inaugural season, and like the team is down like 3 players and he just kills like 3 or 4 players on the Widow. On Li Jiang. Yeah. And it's like, well, it's like if you ask at the end of the game, like, oh, what shouldn't have we done? Like, oh, well, we shouldn't have let Carpe hit 4 amazing headshots. Like, that way you have no control over that, right? Like, it's sometimes it's a little bit like defeating to sometimes admit that, but like sometimes the other team just gets you. Sometimes you play with your buddies and know, they kind of throw a little bit, but sometimes the other team.
I'm glad you're admitting it, Matt. I'm glad you're admitting all of that SR that I've lost because of you.
Nah, come on, man. You know that's not true.
Yeah.
It's kind of not true.
Well, I mean, sometimes there's time for memes, there's times for fun. You know, just in competitive play, it's like try to play serious, try to play to win. Things will work out.
That was a big EMP that we just saw from Dallas. Got like 4 players, but I don't even think it was good enough to get them over the line.
Yeah, this is a really tough segment of Route 66 to push as well, the final area. There's a lot of stuff in Overwatch that's also map dependent as well, and like this segment of the map that you're in too, which is an interesting thing that doesn't apply as much in some other games as well. But some compositions that are really good in certain parts of the map just struggle in others, and then your momentum can be halted so much as well in these kind of areas.
I was just gonna say that, like sometimes, like when you play Route 66, and it even happens at the Overwatch League level, like you'll go through the first 2 stages so fast. Like the second stage is not even like a team fight, and then right here it feels like you get stuck for like an hour, and it just you can't do anything. It even because even if you invest so many ultimates to just kind of get around that first corner, you still have like a ways to go. Like it's not like it's not like King's Row where they did that after that first quarter at the end you can kind of get there pretty quick. But
yeah, it's I know like our level designers when they work through these maps, they'll actually like map out like exact distances from like point to point and so forth. But I agree, for whatever reason, like this particular point, it's always felt long, and maybe that's just because it's like totally straight, so you can see from like one end to the other, and like it's just
oh, that's true.
It's psychological, So it's totally, and like I don't know if it's a comp thing. It feels long.
Yeah, with it being straight as well, there's no real corners to hide behind. There's a lot of stuff to hide behind. I like the way that there's like that flank area on the left.
Yeah.
And a cover on the right as well.
I'm sure that's how they refer to it internally. Let's put a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, we might use a different word, but it's actually pretty similar.
Yeah. I'm not a game designer, Matt. I don't know what technological jargon they use. It's a different world to me.
I mean, there's boxes, there's missiles. I'm sure Sky will be bringing you in anytime soon.
It's beautifully designed stuff.
What does this map need? Just need some more stuff. Just put some more stuff there.
Props. And like beautification, artification, making. Because when these maps start out, they're actually gray boxes. Like all of our maps like start out like at like very early production. We don't like let loose artists on any of these maps until like as designers we actually feel pretty good about like the layout. So when we're doing layout for all these maps, it's like it's the ugliest, like just really gray walls, like very like 90-degree angles, everything, and it's like but we get the big picture things like early on, like for Route 66, like this initial like turn like into the gas station was always a pretty huge part of it, and we knew that was gonna be pretty big. But like it didn't become like
that's sleep dog.
Sorry, I have to pause for awesome sleep there.
Let me hit the
So, but it doesn't become like Route 66 and the American West until our awesome artists like get a hold of it.
Sure.
Like, it becomes big girls.
Yeah.
What is it like seeing the maps go from like the gray blocks to like this beautiful like art, seeing like all the heroes come in and like have all of their art? Like it's got to be like a weird thing to remember what they were like and then see it fully done.
It sometimes happens. We'll do a lot of play testing like early on in the map's life cycle when it is a lot of gray box, and at that point we're like going like, hey, we're feeling pretty good about this, and we might start play testing something else for a little while. We might not play that map for a bit, 3-4 weeks, and like come back and like it's just all changed, and it's like, wait a minute, it's like, have we tested this map before? It's like, it's gorgeous. It's like, oh no, it's like, it's Route 66. Like, oh right, okay, yeah, okay, all right, and you like, you start playing in it, and then it's like it all clicks back. But yeah, no, we totally had those moments of like, wow. Because our artists are just flat out that good.
Yeah,
gotta be
it is one of the most
crazy.
beautiful games I've ever played. It's the attention to detail and the sound design and stuff like that are things that I keep having to remind myself not to take for granted in Overwatch, because it's been done to an absolute perfection kind of level.
Yeah, so many people do, right? Like, you kind of play the game and everyone's playing it just in different facets, but like you kind of get in and you just take like all the like little details on the skins and the maps and voice lines and even like the interactions of the characters and the spawn, right?
Yeah.
Like it happens so quick, but you don't realize like how much attention to detail kind of goes into all of it. Yeah. And even with the owl skins, right?
Yeah.
So much detail put into those. Yeah.
No, it's I feel blessed working on this team, to be honest. It's
I gotta
a joy to come in to work and interact with a bunch of people that are super passionate about making Overwatch awesome. So it's, you know, it's pretty easy to get hyped up for myself. So we have art shows that are always like, you know, it's like, oh, the artists are like, you know, here's the stuff they've been working on, and it's always like the things you don't never want to miss.
Yeah,
you'll see like, you know, early like concepts for skins and like prototypes, and we're just like,
I need.
wow. Yes. And it's unfortunate because we know it's like it's gonna take, you know, sometimes, you know, months.
Yeah.
It'll take a while to get to, but yeah, no, it's we're constantly feeding off, you know, and getting inspired by each other, and I think that's what's made a lot of Overwatch, you know, really successful. And yeah, it shows. Yeah.
That's what Toronto kind of like struggling here on offense.
Yeah, but they're going to be able to capture this checkpoint, and they're pushing all the way deep to be able to deny the spawners coming in from Dallas as well. It just made me think about, like, because we were talking about map design, are there occasionally ways that the pro teams play maps that you and the play testers and the map designers had just never even conceived of when you came up with these ideas? Because a lot of the time when I watch the pros play, they kind of define how maps should be played. Like, a lot of that has a trickle-down effect where pro teams do it, and then some top-level teams do it, and then people in rank do it, and it starts to slowly make its way down the levels in that kind of sense.
That is 100% absolutely the case. And I can give you like sort of one like pretty interesting example. At pro level, you never really see anyone defend the choke on Volskaya A.
Oh yeah.
This doesn't really happen anymore because I think pro teams, they learned it's like control over high ground above the point, and you know the 2 bits of high ground that, you know, are off like the other side was way more important. You know, it's like fighting over the choke is like can be great until you lose it. Yeah. And then it's just kind of like you know, it's strong but brittle. Right, yeah, and they felt like, you know, they could have a lot more like consistent success, like taking control of the high ground. So, I mean, when the map was designed, I mean, yeah, we put the high ground there, but you know, when we played it, you know, early on, it was definitely a lot more about the choke. So, I mean, I think that's a lot of what like we're seeing. We get surprised about is like where pro teams set up fights, where they want to have them, where they regroup. What's like super valuable to them. Sometimes, and we've gotten, as you know, because as we've been watching, you know, the pros play, we've started to like understand that a bit more, and it's affected our level design over time. But we still get, you know, I would say caught unaware, but it's more just like there's still like surprising things that we can learn from the pros in terms of how they handle levels.
Yeah. So I always find it interesting as well that some of the stuff that they do at the pro levels, just like in different parts of ranked, just not, it just doesn't work the same, right? Like I always feel bad whenever I play Hanamura and on defense, like I'll have like a Sigma, like an off tank who'll kind of like watch the high ground, and our main tank's always like, why aren't you playing low with me? He's like freaking out that there's other tanks out there. And it's like a strategy you see employed in Overwatch League a lot, right? To deny that kind of high ground. But in ranked, it doesn't really translate as well because teams usually just kind of play the choke. So I think it's really interesting just in terms of like SR level and competitive rank and just in general of the game, how different like skill tiers of play have different ways to play the game, and different like setups and different holds. I think that's what's fun. It's just always changing, I think, in general.
Absolutely. I mean, and things changed from like the heroes used, the strategies, I mean all those kinds of things, you know, very very different. But I think what's still amazing at the end of the day is that everyone's still having fun.
Yeah.
You know, there are people that, you know, it always like amazed me, like there are people that have hundreds of games playing bronze. They're having fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's like regardless.
Sorry,
you know, it's
the reason that I was giggling, Scott. Sorry, is just that when you said that just as Cruz came up on the screen, and they're 0-2 down, and he looks like he is not having fun. He looks like he really wishes that he won.
Cruz would like to have a conversation with you about that.
Yeah. Well.
But yes, I totally get what you mean. That's why I was giggling. I was not giggling at the idea of people having fun in bronze. I'm sure that's definitely.
Well, Josh has been there, so he knows.
I've actually never been outside. I think I was gold on tank when roll queue first started, and I quickly escaped.
Yeah, quickly escaped. He was ushered
Back
his
to
way
silver.
into quickly escaped gold into silver. But yeah, that's good. That's Dallas up 2-0, right? Yeah. Toronto's having a rough go. Even though Dallas just lost like Decay, their whole coaching staff. Interesting that they're able to turn it around so quick.
Yeah, well,
they're looking pretty good.
I mean, I think that, you know, speaks highly of their team. You know, that even under all this kind of pressures and change and everything else, they're still able to put together some results.
And Note and Gamsu are like the nicest people on the planet. I love to see them. They
really
well.
are, yeah.
Be successful. I did a video with Gamsu last year where we took his dog on a hike, and he was just a nice guy.
What's the name of his dog again? Is like Oni.
Oni. Yeah. I think he's.
Oh, and now he's playing with Oni God as well. That's kind of weird. I'd never thought about that before.
that is kind of odd. I don't know how.
Look at his teammate have the same name.
Well, I don't think it was planned. They gave Gamsu the list of all the damage dealers he could get contenders. It's like, I like that guy. He's got the name of my dog.
Yeah.
That's headcanon now for me.
Yeah.
It's like before I was like, oh, maybe we'll take some questions from the chat, but all they do is spam eggs whenever Josh is on.
But we did have a bunch of questions actually, because we're going into the game break. We have some questions from the r/Overwatch community, because we posted this onto Reddit as well, and they were following up because not all of our viewers, I'm sure, will be aware, but most of them will, that there was an awesome dev AMA about, was that like a month ago now? Maybe only a couple of weeks ago.
A few weeks, yeah.
Time is a different beast in lockdown. By the way. With all of us working from home, time is useless. It is.
Absolutely.
It doesn't make sense anymore.
Things happen.
I
guess it's time for that.
Yeah, by Plat Chat episodes. So I was about to say that was about 3 episodes ago, so about a month. That's kind of how.
That's how
we figure out. Yep, I measure time in Mondays. I know. Whenever we do an episode, it's a Monday.
Yeah. What is life like working from home on the development team, Scott? From our point of view, you know, we're home with the webcams broadcasting. It's pretty similar to the setup that we've got going on now. So you've got a feel actually for what it's like working at the caster, working from home with your backdrop and your camera and all of these other things that the Overwatch team sent you. But what's life like from the development team point of view?
Sure. Definitely different. But I think with the video conferencing the way it is, I mean, a lot of what we do is still, you know, it's having conversations about certain elements of game design, and you know, some of that's like video conferencing, some of that is, you know, something like, you know, Slack or email, like those kinds of things are constantly happening anyway. You know, the meetings still occur. You know, we've got access to our tools, so you know, I can still, like, you know, work on, if I need to work on a piece of data or adjust something, I can still do that at home. So I think we're all like very empowered still. You know, artists are still using, you know, they can still make art, you know, still at the end of the day, a PC, a monitor, you know, a pen or a mouse or whatever. So lots of things are still happening. I think that what you lose is, you know, the smaller conversations that you might have with someone, like going over to someone's desk and you have a conversation about like, hey, well, what games have you been playing lately? It's like, oh, I've been playing, like, you know, this game, you know, I've been playing, you know, and it's like, and as designers, we have a lot of interesting conversations about, it's like, well, this is one thing I thought like this game did particularly well, and this is maybe something else we didn't. What do you think about this? Those kinds of water cooler conversations. Those are I think what you miss more, because those are very spontaneous. Sure. It's like you happen to as a human run across another human in the hall or at a desk, and at this point it's like the teleconferencing is really good about, oh, you're having a meeting at this time, all of you will appear here, right? So I think that's but I mean, we've all got webcams. I mean, Overwatch League was nice enough to provide one for this broadcast, but I have another webcam that I use, so people can see my face whenever we're talking. So
now you can just keep the Overwatch League one.
if they'll let me have it, sure.
It's fine. Me and Josh will talk. They'll
work. Yeah. So, but I mean, I think a lot of it for those of us who've been on the team, I think it's a little bit easier. I mean, it's probably, and speaking for some of the newer employees, because we're still bringing people onto the team. Right. It's probably more awkward for them, because they don't look down at a name and a chat list and can immediately picture who that person is. So it's probably a little bit hard for them. So that's why we try to spend a fair amount of time making even more sure to interact as much as possible with the new members of the team.
What's the part of working from home you like the best?
If I really need to, I can take a nap.
Yeah.
And that's for me. I know a lot of other people on the team, they love having their pets around. Which we were
say that too, yeah.
We were a dog friendly office, so we had some dogs in the office. And there's a couple that came into the design bullpen. Shout out to Buster. We loved. Actually, fortunately, Buster has his own webcam, so we could look at Buster and sort of look at it and just, because when you look at a large dog sleeping, it's hard to really get really worked up about all the stress.
Anything,
it's stress just melts.
Yeah,
right.
True.
So, I mean, for some people, like I said, but others couldn't bring their pets to work, so they have those available. And for some people, it's they get to see their partners more often. They get to see their kids. I think everyone has different. There's different advantages to all that, to working from home. So it's a give and take, but I think overall, morale's super high. We're all really excited about Overwatch, and Overwatch 2. So. Yeah, things move on.
I know my dog is he is associated with my backdrop with me being at the computer and being on, and whenever he sees the backdrop, he always like comes in and tries to like jump up on me, and I'm trying to cast, and then I look down and I see he's just got a big banana in his mouth, just like a chew toy, like ready to like throw. I'm like, no, get away. And sometimes I'm trying to talk and he's just like jumping on my leg. I'm like, can you please stop? Josh, what was another question?
Yeah. Shall I start going through some of the questions that we got then? So
yeah.
One of these, so I picked out some of my favorite ones from the Reddit thread as well. This one's from someone called Delfoxen, who says, have there ever been considerations about making the competitive point system redeem something other than golden weapon skins? And if so, what are some of the ideas that you guys have had around that?
Sure. So the quick answer is yes, we thought about it, but we've actually decided not so much to pursue those kinds of rewards. We actually like the idea more that if you're going to play competitive play,
have a good one.
It's there because it's like it's this really thrilling way to play Overwatch. It's like you're playing it there for the experience in the play, not because it's like a golden weapon to show off. Because those kinds of things, they lose their luster, over time. But the experience of actually like playing those is what's super important. So we've talked about and there's been ideas, but inevitably we ended up just had to ask ourselves, do we even really want to do this? And it sort of came down to, no, I think the game's probably better with not actually providing more rewards.
Right, because the incentive to play competitive is just the competitive environment itself.
Yes. So
yeah, that makes total sense. I can think of a lot of games where I've gotten where Somebody's like, oh, I'm just there just for the tokens to try and get gold weapons. I'm like, I'm here to try and I'm trying my hardest to climb. Please, please just work with me a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought this one was pretty interesting. I know that Matt in particular is a big WoW fan. I personally have never played the game, and I don't get that kind of genre, but I understand why people really love it.
We're trying to get him into it, Scott, because you can be foxes in the new expansion. Josh loves foxes.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, funny you should say that, actually, because this question is by somebody called Bushido Fox, which I don't know how that happened, but that's some weird kind of the universe putting these things together. Who said, have you ever thought about bringing all the characters back to their original states of like the very early Overwatch and seeing how they would work in the current game? And it reminded me of like the vanilla WoW idea, which obviously WoW has just gotten so much more complex than it originally was. But there's something very like nostalgic, but probably broken about the idea of having Overwatch right back to how it was at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, nostalgia is very powerful, and I think it's pretty natural for everyone to go like, hey, do you remember when McCree's right click was really overpowered and like could kill you like super fast?
Insta-killed the Reinhardt.
It's like, do you remember when Mercy like had the like full group res, and I think there's a lot of fun there, and it's something we went down the road of like, hey, what would it take technically to actually do that, because we thought it'd be like a cool game mode if we could pull it off. Like, it'd be a cool game mode, for people to play with and have a lot of fun, because those kinds of things, they're really fun. Turns out we had some like early playtests with it. To get it, basically it came down to there were some technical hurdles that were a little bit too daunting given the amount of time we really wanted to spend on the mode. Yeah. So we love the idea, and it might happen sometime in the future. Not to say that it won't, but I wouldn't look forward to anytime soon.
What we need is April Fools to just slide it into the actual game, and then all of a sudden people are playing ranked and they're like, wait, when Roadhog just ripped me through 2 walls and just one-shot me, McCree's flashbanging like crazy, that would just be, I think a lot of the nostalgia, I mean, I was somebody who I was like, I want classic WoW, and then I got on it and I was like, now I'm 32, I'm like, well, I don't want to stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning killing boars to try and get to get skinning up. I was like, I could have passed that.
Yeah, but for a lot of people, WoW Classic was amazing, and they loved playing it. And they played multiple characters, raiding. It's just it's a different experience, and players enjoy that. For us, like I said, it's not something we love to do it. I think we think it'd be a lot of fun. It's not just about like changing numbers. In a lot of cases, it's about changing animations and effects, and like all these like things where it's like to do it right. There's doing it in a like prototypey, like hacky way, and then there's actually doing it right, so it works on a live service with 1 million people playing or whatever it is. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm sure the comments are gonna be angry at me saying I didn't want to play Classic after a while, but you know what? That's what it is. I was tired of killing all those boars at 3. I tried. Reinforce kept pushing me to. Reinforce is still on the Classic, right? He'll play alone. He doesn't care.
Yeah, that nostalgia feeling, I think, of like recapturing the youth is very powerful. Yeah. Someone called Guy Command. Yeah, someone called Guy Command said he wanted to ask some questions about the quote failed unquote experiment about the 2CP assault kind of thing. I put in failed in quotes because it's not, I'm not saying it was a failure. I actually really enjoyed it, but that was the terminology that the dev team used because you guys felt like some of the goals of it weren't actually accomplished. But can you talk us through that a little bit? Because the question that they ask is, can we expect another experimentational iteration of the assault anytime soon? But I'm also just interested in your thought processes behind the change itself, because I really liked it, but I can totally understand why you might have wanted to look in a different direction.
Sure. The short answer to the Reddit user's question is maybe. A lot of it depends upon, like, whenever we do an experimental card, it's like, do we have something where we think could work out? Like, there's different reasons for different, like, normally when we have an experimental card, it's like, hey, this has sort of gotten past that initial layer of like, we think there's something to this, and it could be cool. So like you've been seeing like balance changes that we're pretty sure of, but again, like sometimes some of the balance changes don't go through on the experimental card. So it feels like for a lot of experimental cards, it's like, hey, this is what we're currently like thinking. We put some thought into it. Here we go. With the 2CP changes, that was something where we've been trying a lot of different things, like with Assault. Some of them are like map changes, and unfortunately, it's a little bit harder to put map changes on the experimental card because we've been trying different things, especially like Paris and Horizon still aren't in the competitive map pool. We've been trying to there are things we could do to change those because some of the issues are like core to the game mode, and some of the issues are the maps. And I think a lot of times the community like sort of melds those together.
Sure.
When they're saying it's like, oh, it's like, I don't really like, 2CP. It's like, well, maybe it's like they just don't really like Paris. They have bad experiences in that, but like a lot of people like Anubis. It's like there's always some people that like that like everything.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the thought with like those Assault changes, really, one, we wanted to try to like reduce the amount of time you spend not actually playing. So I think that particular like experimental card had some really cool things in terms of radically lowering the amount of time between like rounds, like it's basically like 15 seconds, and we had to make some changes to where you spawn and to try to accommodate that. I think some other things were just like trying to make it like that one, and I think why we ended up like not liking it so much, it didn't feel as much like a cohesive experiment. The fact that it got broken up into attack point A, the other team attacks point A, it got broken up into like smaller parts, and that's how I think, and there's some good things about it in terms of like it's a full reset, but it broke up the overall flow of the map, I think, a little bit too much for us.
Yeah.
Like too segmented, yeah.
And I was playing with my viewers, and they had the same kind of experience, whereas I really liked it because I felt like it, I don't know, like it let you attack each point with a focus. You could run different compositions to attack and defend. You didn't have to worry about the ultimate snowballing, that kind of stuff. But I can totally see how it would be a bit of a disjointed experience compared to Overwatch, which is normally very free-flowing. You're going from one team fight to the next team fight. You're constantly adapting and changing your environment where you're playing.
I think it's awesome though that the community gets to see stuff like that, like via the experimental card though, right? Like I think that's been a huge add. Like I love seeing this stuff, like the Assault changes, stuff like the Moira reworks kind of come in, and even if it doesn't stick, right? I think it's just an awesome tool to be able to get just so many people in the community to try something out, and kind of give feedback on a huge scale.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for feedback. Hopefully, like sometimes a lot of the feedback, sometimes we get feedback without people even trying it. That's always a little bit like disconcerting. But it's but by putting it actually like in the client, making it like available to you, it's like, hey, like try it out. Like, what do you think about it? Because again, there were some good positive things about that particular like Assault set of changes in the experimental card. We didn't like some other things, and that's a lot of what game design is. It's just making trade-offs, and this is one where like we didn't want to make a particular trade-off in game flow versus the being able to reset, like you're talking about, Josh.
Yeah. We are back with the game as well. We're heading into Numbani, or we're already in Numbani rather. With the
heading back in, I was like, we are definitely. Yeah. This is I don't know if you know, Josh. This is the second point on Numbani.
Thank you. Thanks.
Just for context for you. Yeah.
Numbani is one of my favorite maps. I love Numbani. I love the way that it's designed with like its streets phase, but then the point A is so kind of equal in terms of the spawn advantage and defensive high ground. I don't know. It's one of my favorite maps. It's super cool.
Yeah, it's pretty unique in our map pool. Like I said, it mentioned like I think that point A in particular, the fact that it's the high ground on pretty much so like it feels like every single side, the different the back door and the way that works out. It's something where it's always been like the map where we go like, how do we get like people to play on point 2 more? Because this definitely like and the stats show like whenever like we look at this, it's like what's the like point that people spend the like least time like basically fighting over? It's like Numbani point 2. But
I love it,
even
though.
but even then you still get some pretty good fights around this corner.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I love offense. Like you take the card real fast, you get like a team wipe, and then whether you're playing like a hit scan hero and you just go to the high ground and you know they're either funneling through that one choke or coming from the high ground, you're able to just click on heads as they come on through. That's why it goes so fast, I think.
Yeah.
My dog has seen the backdrop now. He's here.
Oh.
He's here just sitting here staring at me.
Very
waiting.
cute.
I'm busy. We're talking to Scott. He doesn't.
Hi, Hugo. All right, next question.
Yeah. Another question, Josh.
Yeah, the next question is about maps as well, which is Joe Razor said, would any kind of map pick system be implemented, where presumably when you queue up for the game, you would select maybe a couple of maps that you would prefer to play or want to play, or a couple of maps you are not interested in playing, something like that?
Yeah, it's something we've talked about. There are certainly, I think the broader issue is, I think as we add more and more maps and our map pool gets larger and larger, how do we manage that? At a certain point, like, there might be maps you don't see for a couple of weeks just because randomly you just don't, the map pool is so big. Sure. So we tried addressing that, like, if you guys remember, we had the seasonal map pools.
Yeah.
And those went not so well, to be honest. And I think some of it was, for a lot of players, they have definite... Players like some maps like more than others. That's really natural, and it's when we had like the map pools and we had some maps that they didn't like in the pools, like it was a bad pool. Why are we having map pools? Like, why are you doing this? So giving players a bit more flexibility and actually being able to choose on maps, it's something we've talked about. There's a little bit of worry that potentially, there's doing it the correct way, such that we don't, like, one thing we don't want is like you spending time picking maps and not just playing the game. Like, we need to minimize the amount of time you spending it. Right. So there's like that concern, and then also it's like a little bit worried about, it's like, do some maps just like go away because they're not quite as popular? And sometimes it's not because they're a bad map, it's just like not every map could be King's Row. Right, King's Row is like super popular.
You can't turn comp into King's Row 24/7. Yeah.
Sure. So, how to like provide variety? Because again, like, and that's something we saw as well. Like, some people, like, they talk about the map pools. It's like they thought they were playing the same number. They were playing the same maps over and over again. So
sure,
it's a tricky thing to get right, and something we've talked about. So you might see it. But I don't really have anything super definitive yet.
Yeah, I remember when they had that for Call of Duty. They used to do the map voting where it was like you got to choose between 2 maps or a random one, and then that's interesting. That was something where it was like your whole team would like spam to vote for one, and then if the entire team voted for the other one, it would automatically default to random. So you'd kind of get and you only had I want to say it was something like 10-15 seconds to even cast a vote. It was so fast. But I'm pretty sure because of probably the same reasons you're talking about, just getting into games quick, they kind of just got rid of it. That it was, let's just get people into games faster. I think people at the end of the day just want to play for the most part. Like, they just want to get into a game. They'll deal with whatever map it is when the map comes through.
That's personally how I feel about it anyway.
Yeah, and if there's a map that's an issue, like Paris, it's like we should address that map. Right?
Sure. Yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's like, for me, it's almost better to just kind of retool the map so I want to play it, as opposed to let me like force pick a certain game over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a short round break while the Toronto Defiant resets and sees whether they can bring this series back. But I think we've also changed the sync of the feeds that we're watching as well. So we'll have to refresh those because we're catching up to the live game. I think we had about a 30-second delay previously, and they've fixed it for us, the people at Blizzard. So we can refresh our feeds and we'll be back to, back to basically live.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you.
Yeah. So We should be, if you guys refresh, we should be sitting somewhere around like the 2-minute 40 kind of segment of Toronto's attack.
Josh is just such a great multitasker, being able to help me. Me and Scott are just talking about maps and stuff, and Josh is over here, you know, getting the feeds refreshed.
Hey, all I'm doing is communicating stuff that our producer Kurt is doing.
It's true.
It's not me. That's
the real hero here.
Exactly.
I was saying to Kurt earlier, I was like, Kurt, you should make a video for Plot Chat, the channel, but he wants to like remain anonymous. And like, you remember Home Improvement, the show where the guy was like over the fence and he never forever. He's like, I kind of want to be like that guy. I was like, but the whole chat asked for Kurt.
Well, that's actually an interesting question as well, though, Scott, because what is it like going from being, I mean, across your 23 years with Blizzard, you've started out in a role that wasn't particularly public-facing and become presumably more and more and more so with larger and larger responsibilities. Is it just second nature for you at this point?
No. No. I mean, it's always something where like practice makes perfect. But end of the day, I'm definitely way more of an introvert than an extrovert. So, public speaking never comes like super naturally. It's just something that, because I wanted to do it, because I felt because I've been in front of like BlizzCon, like done BlizzCon panels, been in front of all those thousands of people, like sometimes on the main stage. It's something that, because it's so important, because it's something like I want to do. It's something you have to force yourself to like, I'm just gonna do it, and you try to get better over time, and it does become a little bit easier. Like after the first time, I remember it was the first time I think I was like at a BlizzCon panel, and it was myself and Eric Dodds, who was the lead designer for Hearthstone, and we came up together as designers working on StarCraft Map of the Week. We did a panel on talking about the items of like Encourage and trade skills, because it was like even before Burning Crusade, and that was the first time, and man, like both of us were like freaking out. just completely, but like it's the kind of thing, if you have to do something that's a little bit uncomfortable, it's like you just try to prepare. So I mean, we just put in a little bit of time to for a number of rehearsals, like presentations, they became a bit more, we became super comfortable with them. So it's just something you just have to learn. And like for me, it's always something where I just kind of, I know like we're sort of the tip, like I know I'll never be as good as like Jeff Kaplan, who like makes that talking with like people, who's like the nicest person, great leader, but also can just talk so well. And so that's sort of like my goal, is like being able to like talk with the public in an easy fashion, and because he is such like a genuine person, then I think that comes across, and that's what you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's like when you're talking to the public, you don't want to like try to be something you're not, and that's always been something when I come into the show. It's like, hey, let's just have a cool conversation.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, people don't realize how difficult it is to do.
Yeah. So, but it's when you want to do it, when you feel like it's important, it's like you put yourself, you put in the effort and the time, and there you go.
My first cast, we had an earthquake during it.
Oh wow!
And then the whole room started to shake, and I was very confused. And we were just kind of told to just keep going, and Golden Boy. I remember Golden Boy was next to me. Yeah, Golden Boy's like, well, he's like, you're never gonna be phased by anything again, because we just did that perfectly fine. I was like, okay. I was like, well, at least the room is not shaking. I was like,
after Mother Nature tries to like stop you, and you press on, and like anything else is a whole lot easier.
1 minute left in this clock.
Yeah,
it's defining. Both of the Bobs went in there. One of them got slept. The other one got hacked. So sad. So sad.
Oh, Bob abuse. You don't like to see that.
Yeah. We need to have Bob be a playable character one day. I don't know doing what. I would love to be able to just, if I could play Bob and Sideshow could play Ash, and I just had to play once every 60 seconds, that'd be phenomenal.
That's a good map.
On the map. Yeah. All right, here we go.
Yeah, they held Dallas. Actually, tonight, where we were talking about it at second point.
Yeah, right. The game ended right at that second point. Sorry, now Toronto's getting back into it. They're showing some signs of life.
Yeah,
all
it's pretty good.
All our Canadian
Overwatch.
viewers out there,
Chugging
their maple syrup. Shout out Canada. I'm a big fan of Canada. I like Toronto. I've been to Toronto 3
Toronto's
times.
a really cool team, and it's one of those teams that I don't think it had particularly that many fans and supporters in the first season when it debuted in 2019. But this year they made some really smart acquisitions with the players that they picked up, and they picked up some like really popular players as well. Some of the players that have been around since the beginning and are famous on certain heroes as well. People like Surefour and Agilities, and then they had Mangachu, and they've got a bunch of Canadian players in their roster as well. And they've fast become fan favorites. It's really nice seeing that team and the franchise itself kind of turn things around and become. I feel like that's one of the teams where people tune in and they are deep fans of the players themselves on that team.
Yeah, it's hard to root against them, right?
Oh yeah, I don't know anyone who would root against Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a lot of like outreach. I think something to remember for like all these teams is they're not just working on their game and they're working trying to figure out like how am I going to win this week, but like they're also like they spend a fair amount of time like reaching out to fans, having meets. They have a lot of responsibilities to get closer to like their to their local fan base, and I think that's another reason you see a lot of the teams. It's Toronto. It's like they've all got like really great social media coordinators. Some of them are like. I try to follow a lot of the teams on Twitter just because like a lot of what they're doing is just super funny.
Yeah.
So so like shout out to all the social media.
I think Toronto as well this weekend. They're doing like some kind of like virtual fan weekend. And
okay.
I think tomorrow they have virtual like player meet and greet stuff. So I think even with this year, with how kind of chaotic everything is, they're still able to figure out a way to connect with the fans, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, and that's something like you said. Even though we're in these situations where we can't, it's hard to meet personally, there's still finding a way to connect with fans, and that's awesome. Yeah, it's one of the things I really love about this league.
Yeah.
There's
go on,
go, Josh. No, I wasn't gonna say. You look like you were gonna say something super important. I was gonna add something maybe a little bit important. So
no, it's just another question that I had from
so ask
the Reddit. Here's something that we touched on a little bit earlier, Scott, and this is a really long question, so I'm going to summarize it here. It's from Skullfizz, and he's talking about the difference between. He starts off with, is GM and top 500 meta on ladder significantly different to the Overwatch League? And how do you guys approach balance when it comes from thinking about the Overwatch League and the kind of teamwork involved there, and then lower levels of teamwork when it comes to ranked and certain things being powerful at different levels of the game? Right.
So there are similarities, but there are also like differences. Like they're different enough. Again, I think for some of the reasons that the Reddit user is mentioning is that like levels of teamwork are a little bit different. So
yeah,
some heroes require a bit more like teamwork to function. Like we talked about Sombra earlier.
Yeah.
And I mean, also, while we say it's like competitive play is about winning, again, it's also about having fun. And some days, we're all humans playing this game. Some days, we'll do the thing that's like we feel like is the most effective. Some days, it's like you want to relax a little bit and play what's most familiar to you. Play your favorite hero or whatever. So there's definite differences, but there are enough similarities that it is like useful to look at like master and GM data to see again we look at pretty much all of the data from like even like going down to bronze just so we can understand. It's like looking and saying it's like which heroes are potentially like harder to play, which have higher skill caps, looking at all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like we absolutely have to look at what OWL teams are doing, because again, that's understanding that apex of like what a hero can do under the best circumstances is like super important. So I mean, it's balance is like super tricky thing. Like there's a lot of different considerations, but how pros play is absolutely one of the most important things.
Yeah, I also think too, like when we see something happen in Overwatch League, like it kind of happens in like the GM Master level, but over time it kind of trickles its way like down into like, you know, I played at like Masters for like 10 seasons, but mostly like Diamond, like Plat, like, but you start to see it kind of trickle down over time, like into those ranks as well, where I think Owl is just like the first to adopt, the first to figure out, because they practice so much, they play so much, right? They kind of are able to spot things out faster than all of us playing ranked at home, just kind of in our pajamas, where they figure it out and it kind of trickles down over time. So that's something that I recognize when I play ranked is even when Goats was a thing, right? Like Goats was not a huge thing in like the Diamond SR area until really towards like the end of Goats, right? Like it was like
and even then when people were playing it, they had such little teamwork that it was just kind of
we just select these 6 heroes, we'll just win, right? We just run at them like oh my lord.
Yeah, it does seem like at lower levels more things are viable as well, because people aren't trying to squeeze out the tiniest little percentage of extra ability from everything.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think there's different trickle down rates, like from pros, like through GM and so forth. Like something that you might like get immediate impact is like what the pros think are really strong heroes. It's like, oh, the pros think that it's a super strong hero, so like people start playing it because they see, you know, their favorite pro player doing like awesome with it. Sometimes the actual strategies that like use that hero take a bit longer to actually trickle down because that's where the coordination comes in, and I think you have to like understand, well, why are they picking this hero? Is it just because, oh, it's Ashe and Ashe is really good at just killing everyone at times, versus sometimes. Especially I think with supports and tanks, like why they're really good is a bit more like dependent upon the overall composition or an overall strategy, right? So
definitely. That's something that I really like to bring up whenever I see different threads on forums or Reddit or something talking about balance, is that a lot of the time a hero can look really powerful or really weak purely dependent on the composition that they're played in as well, because you need like some synergy. Like I know that there seems to be a bit of a movement beginning about Zen being really weak, and I can see people like putting out tweets and stuff on the forums and stuff about like, oh, Zen, you know, he hasn't kept up with the meta the same way that Soldier 76 has, you know, he's stuck behind the times. Zen's been outrageous when he's in certain comps. He just needs specific compositions to be able to defend and empower him. He's not a survivable solo. He relies on his team a little bit more, but he's still really, really good.
And again, people always jump on that. No, people always jump on stuff like that. Like you know, even I remember when Ana first released, right? It was like, oh, Ana won't be that effective. Like, oh, look at this. Like, and then all of a sudden everybody started to figure out how to use her in certain compositions, and then it was like, Ana's never gonna go away. She's incredible. And then like you start to see other metas like form. I think it's just how the game changes over time.
It's everyone's perception of the game changes over time.
Yeah,
I think that's the key thing there. Because you mentioned Ana, like Brigitte is another one where no one like when she came out, like not a lot of people were playing her. And she was strong. When you go back and look at the numbers and like all the things, like you compare like Brigitte back then to Brigitte now.
Yeah, I saw a post about that recently.
It feels night and day. And like initially, it's like, no. It's like I think I'm gonna play these other sports instead. They feel much better. So it's perception changes. At times it feels like a big circle of balance. One thing strong today is one thing weak, in a month, and then it comes back around again. And I think. You're talking about how comps change, but I think it's also like map dependent. That's the thing to like always like remember is like some comps work really well on some maps and some don't.
Yeah, like you'll always see Reinhardt on King's Row and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because the closer quarters,
How much of the stuff that you guys do on the development team is perception versus reality? It seems like a lot of it is also kind of, it's a multi-pronged attack, right? You have to not just tackle the game itself, but also it's humans playing the game, and humans have different perceptions about, how it feels to win or lose versus, the stats of winning and losing, and how certain heroes feel versus how they actually are. How much of that is influential in what you guys are doing.
It absolutely is. To varying degrees, it sort of depends upon, are we talking about hero balance? Are we talking about matchmaking? Or are we talking about, map design? But it is definitely a pretty big, important thing that we always think about in terms of when it comes up. It's like, what does the data say? What do people think? Sometimes those are two very different things. We have to be cognizant of both of them, and that's where kind of the art of game design is taking all these like varying bits of data, whether or not it's an anecdotal like story, or it's actual like hard data about wins and losses and so forth, and like blending those together and trying to figure out like what's the right direction that we really need to get to try to improve both perception and reality. And it's hard, but we try to do the best of it. I mean, and there's definitely not like the silver bullet for any of that kind of stuff. It's all so case by case.
Sure.
Yeah, it's got to change just so much. General. Somebody from the chat, there are a bunch of people from the chat were asking. I guess I could ask a question. Who's your main? Who do you like to play when you play Overwatch?
I still have a fondness for Zenyatta, and like I enjoy playing him.
Yeah.
Actually, like
Zen main. Nice.
early on. So early on in Overwatch's development, I did a bit of like hero implementation because the design team was smaller and multiple. It wasn't just there were a few of us that were doing like heroes, and I actually basically put Zenyatta's scripts together. So I always have a little bit of a soft spot for him from that regard. Right. Working with the artist on the animations for him, and so that's a little bit. Well, I also just like enjoy. I'm shout out to Doa. I'm one of the bloodthirsty supporters. So I enjoy that part of it. So it's something I've whenever if I don't know what else to play, a lot of times I'll just fall back to Zen.
Each hero has that one like thing that they can do that like just gets like addicting, right? Like with Zen, like I always just love loading up like a right click, like an alternate fire, and just like it just feels so good when you just see all the orbs just fly and just nail somebody and you get the kill out of it. You just feel awesome. I think like that's one of the reasons I like playing Zen. I also like playing Zen because that means Josh can't play Zen, so he has to play something that he can stay a little closer to the team on. So it's a little bit of a two-pronged approach, just like how design is.
Yeah, but it's a thing where like it's I'm not really that I'm not I'm probably much more like I'll admit to it, like more on the gold side of things in terms of like competitive play, and some of that I think is that like I do play like a lot of roles, play a lot of heroes. Never really become like super good at like a few of them, because I actually enjoy it like. Pretty much so like all the characters, like I enjoy playing them. Just some I'm better at than others. I think we all get frustrated. It's like, oh, this like hero is cool, but why can't I make it work? Why I keep losing when I play this character?
Or sometimes you get in love with a hero that you're not really good at, but you think you're really good at.
Yeah.
Like Brent with the Brenji.
I can't believe you would just discredit the Brenji live on broadcast.
Yeah, so, and of course, as part of, honestly, it's part of the job as well as like being able to play like all the heroes, just some amount is like super useful in terms of, because there's a lot of like there's always bits of feedback in terms of like how does the weapon feel, how does the controls work, how responsive are all these heroes. So we do a tremendous amount of like playtesting internally, and that's a lot of what we talk about. It's not just balance. A lot of it is more like how does the character feel? Is it hitting the fantasy? Does it like feel crisp? Do like the guns feel right? Do the sounds they're making? All those things are a lot of what we talk about. So.
You're gonna be in trouble, Josh. Bren was in the chat just with question marks when he heard the comments about the Brenji.
I don't know if there's any.
Stand by my statement.
Yeah, I don't think there's any ambiguity in what Josh said.
Bren just question marked.
Yeah, listen, Scott has the data somewhere about the brain view.
The data.
If he wanted to dig it up,
facts.
Scott could find the data, and I'm sure it would not look good for Brennan.
The hard facts on the brain sheet.
Toronto Defiant just won a really clutch fight there as well. Yeah, they managed to avoid an EMP coming out from Doha, peeled pretty effectively, and came out with a win. Really nice shot from Logic. So I actually thought that might have been the end of the series right there. Toronto had like one last chance to be able to capture point A. Otherwise, we were probably looking at the Dallas Fuel coming out with the series.
Would it be crazy to say that nothing screams Dallas Fuel more than Toronto forcing a Game 5 scenario here?
I would love to see that, though. I would love to see it. I think Toronto are one of those teams where I'm wanting them to succeed, especially Numlocked as well. If anyone who's watching isn't aware of this guy, I mean, I played some previous former games and titles with him and then followed him into Overwatch, essentially. And he's been playing since 2016, playing the main tank role. And he had a chance in the Overwatch League last year, or was that even in 2018? Maybe that was in 2018.
Was it year 1 with the Valiant, right?
With the Valiant, yeah, but was it? Yeah, maybe it was 2018 then, towards the end. And he didn't really get a fair shot. I think he only got subbed in like once or twice. They lost to the Shanghai Dragons because the team hadn't really been practicing together. So now to see the guy come out and be performing pretty well and Toronto look revitalized with him in the lineup, it warms my heart.
It is fun to see some of the players, I mean, even for Overwatch League that we got to see in different tournaments, like all over the world, come in and play for some of these different teams. Like, you look at somebody like Fearless, right? Fearless on Shanghai was on the 0-40 Dragons, went into Tier 2, and then came back. You rarely see that type of stuff where even Dallas, like look at Gomsu and Note, right? Like Note was on Boston, everybody kind of thought he was like a little bit done. He gets teamed up with Gomsu again. And they're able to make things work here for the Dallas Fuel. It's I love when we see players switch to different teams and we see all new rosters. Like that stuff excites me. I love seeing, like even at the beginning of this year, it didn't last for long, but to see like Jaehong on the Vancouver Titans with like those guys, that was pretty cool to see. Now you see like Gesture and Prophet on Seoul Dynasty. Like it's cool to see all the players change teams and to get to see some of your favorite players end up on a team and play with some new guys.
Yeah. What's it like, Scott, when the scene was first developing, watching a game that you'd worked on become the life's passion for people trying to become pro? Because I would imagine that when you're part of the development team, Overwatch was your life, but it wasn't anybody else's life because you hadn't released it at that point. So it's kind of insane that it then becomes so many other people's passion and career that they spend all of their time doing and working on the same kind of stuff that you did.
Yeah, it's crazy is I guess probably the biggest thing. It's like when you think about like, you know, all the people that, I mean, Overwatch is what started out like as a relatively small team at Blizzard working on, you know, this passion project. And how it's like grown, how the team has grown, how esports has grown, how the fans have grown, like how the community, which, you know, our community, like part of the reason we were doing the AMA just now was that the Overwatch Reddit, you know, hit a milestone in terms of like people on the Reddit. So it's humbling, it's crazy, it's something that try not, you know, you never want to let those kinds of things go to the head. If anything, it's just motivation, understanding that like, hey, there's a lot of people that are like super passionate, they care about what you know, the game that we're making, and you just want to do right by them. Yeah, that's really, you know, at the end of the day, it's like you just want to make sure it's like you're doing right by like everyone. So just trying to do the best you can, and that's something that, you know, all of us on the team like feel that, you know, it's like we're just trying to make a great game. You know, we have morning stand-ups, which are now on video conference, of course, but like they all end by, you know, saying it's like, hey, let's make a great game. You know, let's make a game that people are gonna have fun with. People, you know, can feel, you know, proud. You know, it's like it's a responsibility. There's a lot of different things that people could be doing with their time. but the people that are playing Overwatch or watching Overwatch League or following us, on social, Reddit or whatever, it's like those people are a big part of this massive community, and we just want to do right by them. So that's why I try not to think too much about it, because it's like it feels like this big, huge, like massive weight. It's like don't worry. Like at the it's like just on a day-to-day basis, it's like you just like try to like work through like the tasks that you have. There's compartmentalize. You say like you shrink all of that down to, well, I'm just working on this small thing right here. Like how do I make the best? What's the best decision right now on this really small thing? And you just hope you make enough of those right decisions that in the very end, something special comes out of it.
You guys have made a lot of decisions, right? Because I know we obviously work on Overwatch League, but we just love Overwatch in general. Like we play together often. Once we lose enough, we play separate. But we just love to play. I think that's why we kind of got involved in just Overwatch League, Overwatch esports in general, because we love the game and love how it's designed and how it plays.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
and thanks to everyone. Yeah, it's a pleasure and honor to work. Work on this game. I feel really lucky.
Yeah, so I think Dallas ended up winning that 3-1.
Yeah, they did. They held off the Toronto Defiant.
Were there any final questions that you had, Josh, or did we get through them?
There was one more actually, which was about OpenQ as well. Who said it was Gaycoman said, with the recent addition of OpenQ soon finishing its first official season, has it met your guys' expectations, and is there anything you would like to improve? And they also followed up by saying, I heard it was popular in South Korea. Is that still the case?
So we're pretty happy with it. It is actually popular in South Korea. I think one of the reasons it's popular there is I think it's just because there's a lot more players who are queuing for DPS. They have longer, and that's when we're saying like we're pretty happy with OpenQ. We're happy with how OpenQ has turned out, but at the same time, I think there's still work for us to do in terms of trying to equalize queues. Like we're not happy with the current state of DPS queues. They're still like much longer, and we are actually putting some effort into some additional technology, some additional systems that can hopefully help with that even more like in the future. So happy with OpenQ. Still work to do on queues and improving them for DPS, and announce more about that later.
Interesting.
Intriguing. All positive. More fast DPS queues so I can get into games. Although I do like, I will say it's been a while since the update came through, but being able to play another game while searching for the game, like whether it be through the game browser or an arcade, has been wonderful to alleviate some of the wait times.
Oh yeah.
There are so many awesome workshop modes.
Yeah,
like people are putting out. It's really amazing.
What are some of your favorites?
The Tank Engine.
Oh yeah, have you played that one, Scott?
I've seen it. I haven't played it. I mean, there's like the one that was like making its way around the office that we were joking about was like Tiny Room.
Yeah. Tiny Overwatch.
which was just crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like so much creativity, and it's been fun, and I think the programmers who have like done the lion's share of the work to make all that happen, we're all super happy that they've had that opportunity, because I think we get inspired. We see a lot of like all these kinds of fun things. It's just really cool to see, and we hope. I mean, we're going to continue to expand like the workshop. I think user-generated content is super important to a lot of us, because that's how we got our start in the industry. It's so we'd like to do more in the future. Like we'll have to see how far down the rabbit hole we go with all that stuff, but we're still super excited about it and things that come out of like the workshop. So that's one of the better things about the queue. Wow, if it's deathmatch or a cool workshop mode or whatever. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Have you ever played Torbjorn Golf? That's also one of my favorite ones. Yeah.
No, I've not. I'll have to check it out.
It's just to quickly describe it. There's little like spheres around the map which operate as the hole, and by holding down mouse 1, you launch yourself as Torbjorn across the map.
Torbjorn's
kind
of a ball.
Oh, okay. This
You
wasn't
try
where
and
I was
hit the
thinking.
sphere.
It's like you say Torbjorn golf. It's like Torbjorn like with his
With the
claw
hammer?
hitting a button.
No.
Oh, yeah, no. Torbjorn is the
Torbjorn
golf
is
ball.
the ball. And you bounce Torbjorn across the maps. It's fantastic. It's so weird. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so bizarre that the game of Overwatch can be taken to such weird places within the workshop. But I love it.
The next time Scott is on Plat Chat, it'll be the Torbjorn Golf Masters put on by Plat Chat. We'll have the Masters of
USA
Torbjorn
versus
Golf.
Europe.
Let me know, I'll be there.
Ryder Cup Torbjorn Golf edition.
Yeah.
But, no, this has been awesome. Thank you, Scott, again for coming on, chatting with us, kind of opening yourself up to a lot of the topics the community wants to talk about, we want to talk about. It was awesome. I know everybody in the chat was super hyped for this. They absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and this has been a great conversation. It's been really, really cool to have to be on the show, and just have another opportunity to like talk about Overwatch. I can talk about Overwatch for hours.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of fun. So
thank
you.
Anytime you want to talk about Overwatch for hours, you are welcome on.
We are here.
On Plat Chat as well. Yeah, we are here. We also enjoy talking about Overwatch for hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's lots to talk about.
But yeah, no, thanks Scott for coming by. Thanks to Play Overwatch and Overwatch League for helping us out, setting this all up, allowing us to have the game feed on here on Plat Chat. I have to go back to the show though, the Overwatch League show, because I'm on the desk today. Josh has a day off, so he can kind of go do whatever. But
well, I'm not gonna go and do whatever. I'm gonna sit down and wait for the amazing Uber and Bren cast.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I can't even imagine what that's gonna be like.
The amount of anger in Mitch's voice is just gonna be great. I'm excited for that. But yeah, everybody from here, you guys should go check out the Overwatch League. That is live, youtube.com/Overwatch League. I'll be on the desk for the third, fourth game of the day. It'll be Mitch and Bren calling, so you don't want to miss that. Bren's analysis is, I would say it's this tier, but you can't even see my hand. It's above where my window is cut off.
What you got to remember is Matt's really short, so when he puts his hand above his head, that's still really low.
It's really high. Yeah, really high for me. But that's gonna be it for us. We'll see you at the podcast Monday night, and go over to the Overwatch League, check it out.
The Gladiators, but a very muddled, a very messy map too. Again, holds our sort of predictions hostage. Just really, we don't know what to expect from either of these teams next.
Yeah, now, given the fact that the Atlanta Reign were tending more towards those rush compositions on Havana, we are going to be heading into King's Row, which means that they should have the advantage moving forward in this series at least, especially if they were kind of moving over towards more of those compositions. So, hopefully, the Atlanta Reign can come out swinging here. The trouble is, Mitch, the Atlanta Reign have also been a team, just historically, over the course of their entirety of being in the Overwatch League, they wear their hearts on their sleeves. And they live and die by previous performances. This is a team that need to be feeling themselves in the moment to actually really have a strong showing. And after just getting absolutely trounced by the Gladiators, it's going to be very difficult, I think, for them to mentally bounce back. And I don't like talking about like the mental state of teams as it's going on, because there's no way for me to know that. But I know for a fact that the Atlanta Reign are a team that they live and die by this concept of basically how well they're performing in the moment. They've got someone to hype them up in the moment. That's what Baby was so good for in this team.
I mean, we spent quite a large number of the last few weeks talking about this stat, you know, the Atlanta Reign. They are the win 3-0 or not at all. And over the longest series, they tend to get worn down more and more. They seem like a team with a lot of inertia, right, Bren? Well, it could be
100%.
Tough. Once they get going, they're very hard to stop. But now they have to generate some sort of momentum, some sort of impetus heading into the second half of this series. Kings Row feels like a home map for many teams. And maybe we do get to see that Reinhardt rash composition. But that was handled fairly well by the Gladiators at times. You know, if that doesn't work for the Reign, what do they do, Bryn? They go to like double shield and go up against like maybe another Hanzo Widow spectacle from the Gladiators.
If your rush comp doesn't work on Kings Row, yeah, I got some bad news for you, pal, because this is the map where it was born and bred. This is where teams love to run it. And typically Gladiators have had, you know, some iffy showings on Kings Row. It's sometimes one of their stronger maps, sometimes one of their weaker maps when they try and run some LH Cloudy, Reinhardt, May, cranking 90s style of composition. But we'll see, because the Atlanta Reign, as I said, I expect them to have a bit more of a better showing. Now, it looks like to me on this first defense, not going to be opting for, obviously, the rush. Going to be going for a bit of double shield action, which I'm not afraid of. I actually quite like this. I feel like it's something that you want to pull out more on the attacking side of things. The issue is holding on to this composition when you're up against something that the Gladiators are teasing right now, which I don't know if they're going to be sticking with this entirely. Probably going to be switching off some of the snipers as well. But plenty of opportunities for those single individual pickoffs, and that's exactly what you don't want. The Atlanta Reign kind of want to be brawling. If you look at this kind of composition, they want to be rotating, they want to be brawling, they want to be using that immortality field. Snipers just, I mean, they just ignore the concept of an immortality field. They kill people far too quickly before you can get any value out of it.
I don't know how the Atlanta Reign are really going to control high ground if the Gladiators are able to establish control of that, outside of maybe Master going and trying to chase down like an aggressively flanking Widowmaker. The Reign put shields far forward early, and then they say, okay, no, we're just going to back up a little bit more here. The Gladiators have double sniper with dive tanks, and you see that OG will head off towards the sunset now as he crosses into position. Again, there's a lot of threat. You don't want to get caught by this Junkrat as you try and die, but Erster can't really do anything to Kevster or Birdring. So the Gladiators have plenty of time, Brent, to figure out the angle of attack.
Yeah, this composition requires a lot of execution. You need to be on the same page as your entire team if you're going to get value out of it. A lot of this is going to be Birdring getting into the appropriate position. You can see him on the high ground here, hunting for those shots, but Edison is keeping him in check. It's very hard for the Gladiators to get anything done, but they haven't really been feeding too much. In fact, they've been purposely taking just enough damage so they can build up this nano boost, and that's going to be the win condition here, Mitch. Moving forward, this nano boost, apply it onto OG, maybe try and create some space.
OG's already moving up. He wants to try and get the Reign with the Reign, try and preempt them here. OG drops back over for a bit more. Tickle the elbow, but he was out of line of sight from Shaz, who couldn't give him the nano boost. There's a duplicated Junkrat, question mark, of all things here. And Kester is able to get rid of Erster with that Riptide, which he built disgustingly fast. About 2 for 1, by the way. Another Riptide gets cut down on the way to its target. And the Gladiators still have a lot of work to do to capture this point. OG goes in again, Brent.
Yes, OG is back in, and this time he is going to get an nano boost and see if he can create a bit of that space. Now, Bob is going to be sent out here by Edison, but slept up on the point. Catch him having a bit of a kip on the point, but Birdring yoinked backwards and forwards, taken out of the fight. They really do. The Gladiators are going to be living and dying by this concept of having Birdring in these off angles, trying to get these picks, trying to create some pressure off the back of OG. Good news for the Gladiators, though, is that they do have this Primal Rage coming into this next fight, and hopefully OG can either get a pick-off or make enough space for Birdring to get one.
OG gets in the back once more, trying to pressure now with the Primal Rage here. You see the trap already placed down by Edison's feet, just in case OG gets a little too frisky. And again, OG looks really reluctant to dive very deep into this, but they've created space for Birdring, who now needs to do something with this. He's in a great spot, and that could have been lifted off for the Immortality field in play, but he's a Riptire, Brent.
It could be huge. Nobody's paying attention to it, and he gets the kill anyway, trading it out. The Atlanta Reign in such a good position here. They know exactly what was going on. They've got a firm understanding of what the ultimates the Gladiators are trying to roll out with, essentially. But again, the power of this composition that the Gladiators are running is that they can start rotating them, swapping in and out the Nana Boost because you build it up off the back of the subsequent team fights. So they do have another Nana Boost that they can utilize. I don't know what the target is, but Birdring has certainly found his own.
Yeah, that's going to be the pick that starts this one off. Great halt into accretion. Dogman finds the kill on Kevster through the Ant Matrix, and Birdring's still looking for a target. A second for Dogman, once more through his own window. And if Birdring doesn't get any more value, or Kevster for that matter, that first pick, Bren, doesn't matter so much anymore.
Yeah, the Nana Boost just, I mean, really didn't get anything done. Kevster dying at the start didn't help. He's back in now. He's going to get a duplicate, but OG's dead. It feels like it's too late again. Birdring,
another pick from Birdring.
Might be able to turn this. Birdring 2.
Okay, Gravitic Flux now throwing in OG. Gonna drop now and be waiting for everyone to fall, but Birdring's on a high ground position now, and Gator Peach just a little bit too far ahead of his shield, and I mentioned it, he got the early pick, but he needed to provide more, and so he did. Birdring serves up a point A for the Gladiators on a silver platter. Still though, Brett, took him awful long to cap point A, trying to play this composition against double shield.
Yeah, it did take them a very, very long time. Here's that replay of Birdring just, I mean, these are just nasty. But this is one of the things I keep bringing up, and I hate to go into negatives just as the Gladiators end up capping that point A, but they rely so much on Birdring to get a lot of these opening picks, when normally this composition can get work done with just the Nana Boost and the Winston Primal Rage. But if you're relying this much on Birdring to get work done, it doesn't really bode too well for the rest of this map. You see Kevster going down early to the bob there. He's going to really put him in this fight.
Okay, brash play from Dogman as he ascends to the high ground with his Exo boots to take the fight straight to Birdring. Comes out the victor there. The surprise factor probably helping him just as much as anything else. But the Atlanta Reign, Brent, feels like they have a stronger composition to play this choke. They got a lot of shields, plus they'll have Ant Matrix if they need it. The Gladiators have to get creative, right? How do they get OG into the backline safely in a position where he can get this nano boost? Who are they duplicating? What does Birdring do with an infra site? All these questions to be answered.
It's so hard to get value as a Widowmaker in this position right here, because your only line of sight is going to be this small, narrow choke point. You can go to the high ground, but it's going to be so difficult to get anything done. And look, they saved the Gravitic Flux for OG. They know he's going to be going in with the Nano Boost to try and build up that Primal Rage. The Atlanta Reign, they're just reading what the Gladiators are throwing at them. They know exactly what's coming up next. And they're able to just hold on here. Now we're down to our final minute on the clock. That's all they've got to work with.
I love that. I love the Gravitic Flux on OG, Brent. Against the composition that features Ashe, Widowmaker, and Mercy, you're not going to get a huge Gravitic Flux anyway, right? Everyone's going to be dispersed or up in the air. So use it defensively, stop the Nano Winston from getting value. You actually get more damage against a Nano Winston than otherwise, because you still get half of his health with the damage reduction in place. So nice response. Kevster over the top though.
Yeah, this is a nasty little intro here from Kevster. You can see making the duplicate over now to the Orisa. I mean, I'm laughing, but it's a good pick if you can build up that supercharge. It can be the difference between winning and losing. He's built it up, and now that extra damage is going to be laying on top of the aggression being offloaded here. You can see Kevster having an absolute field day. Actually going to get traded out, and the Atlanta Reign are still holding on strong.
And Orisa duplication is the best way to increase your effective health pool as Echo, but it wasn't really enough. And yeah, maybe the lethality wasn't quite there. Space is able to find two. The pressure was there from OG as well. And it looks like this car may get moving, but once more, Atlanta Reign shave an entire checkpoint bonus worth of time off. It's overtime all the way through this second phase.
Such a difficult situation for the Gladiators to be put in, because as well, before that team fight that we just witnessed, they had to make wholesale switches to their composition to try and compete over to the mirror composition. So they had no ultimates other than the duplicate. Kevster had to get some work done. Thankfully, he did. Now the Atlanta Reign, they have forced it into the overtime, but now they're going to be trying to force this neutral engagement fight. Not really any ultimates other than the Ant Matrix, but an Ant Matrix can be more than enough.
Yeah, it looks like the Rangers just want to try and force the Gladiators off the carpet. Birdring has a sneaky beak, a little off angle. Gets good value there out of that dynamite and may return to the fight with a bomb if his team can survive long enough.
I like this angle here from Shaz on top. See, laying down his amplification matrix. Nobody's really looking at him, and this allows so many opportunities for the Gladiators to roll on deep. Great pickoffs once again from Birdring. And now the shoe is on the other foot, I should say. You see the ultimate starting to get built up here for all the gladiators. They can start rotating these in and out. The duplicate almost up for Kevster. They have the sound barrier and almost the supercharger. So a very winnable map here for the gladiators, or at least they can turn this into a much more ideal scenario.
Who would have thought, Brent? Just switch back to the Orisa Sigma setup and you can start to really make some progress. They'll still have Big Goose on the Lucio. Whether he switches off that or not remains to be seen. There's tons of environmental kill potential here, and the sound barrier could be big. Here's a supercharger, immediate duplicate onto a Sigma here, and Kevster now rules the roost from the high ground, but it's a sound barrier from Atlanta.
Yeah, much better sound barrier from Atlanta. You can see them leading it in to try and take this fight. Gravitic Flux, though, perfect timing. Coming out from Kevster with that duplicate once again. Putting in the work, putting in the damage. Will be enough, though. Bob now sent in for the Atlanta Reign to try and recontest this one.
Yeah, he gets slapped back a little bit, buying a little bit of space for the Gladiators. Is that it? Oh, that's it! Big Goose sends Astra and Dogman over the edge. The Gladiators now have a player advantage. They'll try and keep the pressure up, even though they lost a couple of their own. Holt's going to get deployed. OG also has a supercharger here, and the fight is far from done. The Atlanta Reign are scrabbling to get back in position, Bren, for one last fight.
So winnable for them. You can see the supercharger laid down, but OG trying to defend it. Instantly destroyed, and Matrix as well. The Atlanta Reign, they were primed, they were ready. They knew exactly what the Gladiators were going to be chucking at them. They are the ones to come out on top. They are going to be stopping them just short here of this third and final checkpoint. Gladiators, I think they can be, I don't want to say pleased. You're never going to be pleased at not getting the full completion, but that was looking like an abysmal map initially. They got forced right down in the clock just in the initial start of the map. The fact that they even made it to this final checkpoint is a miracle in a lot of ways.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch
through that first choke after point 8, right? And that's just how much time the Gladiators spent on that half of the map. So they try to go for a dive composition, knowing full well that they're up against double shield. It's a comp that's set up to try to say to Birdering, like, listen, you and Kevster primarily, but you need to get into a position now whilst everyone is busy dealing with the threat generated by our Winston, belting them in the back of the head, going over the shield. And Birdering's window is always very short. It's as long as OG can stay alive, which against a cop that have Junkrat or Orisa Sigma, it's hard. But here's the lovely boot play from Big Goose, a la Moth that we saw on the same map and position.
I love it. I had flashbacks in that moment when I saw it happening. I was like, no, surely not. But it gives them a bit of extra progress when they got that off. But yeah, to go back to the Winston conversation, I'm a big proponent for teams playing towards their strengths, and that means OG on the Winston, Birdering on the Widowmaker when he's feeling himself. But when it doesn't work, you gotta make those switches. And the Gladiators have been just a little bit late when it comes to making these composition switches. We saw it on Havana, we're seeing it here as well, but it is going to be a new turn of events because the Gladiators are going to have their time in the sun on the defense now. Plenty of opportunities for them to come up strong here.
All right, we got May on both sides here, and Birdering will be duking it out with Edison across the map. And it will be space to help Birdering maintain the high ground control. Door is shut immediately in the Reign's face. No vacancy, apparently. The Gladiators are eventually going to have to stand their ground. There is a later immortality field from the Gladiators, but they didn't have the healing available to them. The Atlanta Reign kept the pressure up, and with Shaz going down as Batista at that point in the fight, they lost so much effective healing late.
Massa just waiting for the cooldown! Oh, no.
Oh, you can't do that to the boy!
Yeah, I mean that's the way it's done sometimes. It's always a painful moment when I'm playing Widowmaker. I hate it. There's two things I hate when I'm playing Widowmaker in Overwatch. It's a Lucio going at full speed, rolling out into my face, or a Valkyrie Mercy. The two things, the supports, they're deadly. They're deadly, I'm telling you.
We're going to see that probably more than once here as Master loves trying to close the gap and play aggressively, just like his opposite number, Big Goose. But so far, so good for the Atlanta Reign. They have a lot of time to work with the Gladiators struggling to get past this part of the map. Edison outranges Birdering and removes him right at the start of that fight, and a late immortality field here means that the Reign can regroup. Kevster a little bit too low to complete the kill.
Still a winnable scenario though for the Atlanta Reign. You can see them, especially as Space is going to go down. His own little hypersphere is taking him out. A disaster for the Gladiators, as they were hoping to maybe get a little bit of a hold going there, that checkpoint. But the Atlanta Reign seemed quite well versed at running this kind of composition. And you got to think as well, Birdring, when he moved over to that the McCree pick earlier, you can see he's now made the switch over to Ash. Well, Edison's just going to be out-damaging him. He's going to be out-ranging him. It's a hard matchup for Birdring, so I'm glad he's made the switch over now to the Ash. But I just cannot see a world in which this card does not keep running, given the ultimates the Atlanta Reign have got to work with here, Mitch.
And they use one just to start the fight. Amplification Matrix card very close towards his checkpoint. First, although he loses his Blizzard, he gets eaten up by the kinetic grasp. But the Gladiators get a good one of their own, and that's enough to take Hawk down. That's the first step, but the Gladiators aren't home quite yet. Now it's Supercharger coming out from Gator. The damage boost is there, but so is the Immortality Field again from the Gladiators. And Los Angeles have the answer each time it's required. Now Space, if he needs to a bit of flux, he'll let it go. Just Bob caught in it right now, and Space won't trouble himself too much with that one. They've lost Birdring, but it looks like the Gladiators have won the war.
Yeah, just staggering at the end of this one. I mean, I don't know what Ursa's doing here. This is questionable gameplay from me. This is like sideshow level gameplay. What are you hoping to do, 1v5? Like, why are you using the ice spot? You're just staggering yourself. You buy anyway. Besides the point, all of that was set up just there from Space, actually. Getting the grasp off onto Ursa's Blizzard at the start of that team fight set them up, because the Atlanta Reign should have been favorites to win that. With the double tank ultimates they had available, I mean, I said to them, it looked so winnable at the start before we even ran into that team fight. But wonderful individual performances there from Space to set his team up to succeed. And now they've got a crucial holding point here, just before checkpoint B. This is where you want to be.
Ult, and Matrix comes out. Nice Mayball actually makes it hard for much of the Gladiators to benefit from the damage boost, but Edison is still felled. Birdring, okay, keeps himself above 100 HP so doesn't die immediately on the drop down, and now he'll throw a dynamite around the corner. Bob out of the picture. OG a little bit lower than he would like to be, and he's going to use the Shield of Space for the time being, but he wants to be aggressive, he wants to push forward, but the Gladiators need to be careful not to walk into a Blizzard. That would be their undoing, and it looks like the Gladiators know when discretion is the better part of valor.
Yeah, no overextension, which is good, but now it's time for the Atlanta Reign to make some moves. Blizzards are traded out, so it's a bit of a cacophony of blizzards and winter time. A bit of fun, normally in December. Christmas rolls around, not quite at this time. The teams are trying to push through hard to get through the choke point.
Nothing better than walking into a Blizzard, Brett. Big fan of it, whenever I have the chance. Oh, that's a nasty gravitic flux. Oh no! Dogman dropped on his hiney. And now Gator, the only player on the other side of that amplification Matrix, is able to find Space, but again the Gladiators step up. And is this going to be a repeat of Havana, where the Gladiators put this Herculean effort up when it comes to that second defense?
You're telling me you've never had fun in a Blizzard, you know, around Christmas time? I suppose you come from Australia.
I think
so
it depends who you're with, you know. Really, I think enjoying a Blizzard, being out in one, depends on the company. So I'll belay my judgment until I have the right people alongside me. What do you reckon? Next winter, Bren, me and you, a Blizzard?
Possibly, yeah. Definitely not now. It needs to be socially distanced if we were to do it now, but maybe next time we'll get the opportunity to do it. Gladiators are now coming on board because they're coming online. They've got the ultimates. Nice wraparound from Atlanta Reign here, working in with the Supercharger. They're going to try and use that damage boost to try and lead in the charge. It's worked out in their favor. Shaz and OG are going to be the first casualties. Hawk with the Gravitic Flux to try and turn it around. If you get one more pick off, it will be done and dusted. And finally, the Atlanta Reign are going to be able to pierce through this defense.
And it's a reset now for the Gladiators. All that time they bought, the Reign are about to get a little bit of a top up into the time bank. Remember, the Reign don't even have to finish the map. They don't even have to get that far through this second phase. Get an extension up to 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And again, it's feeling like Groundhog Day for the Gladiators. They come out of spawn. They've got a Supercharger and hopefully a sound barrier to work in with this next fight, but they only really have one, Brent.
It needs to be flawless execution now. OG needs to be good with this placement of the Supercharger. Comes around the corner, and it's up to Birdring to see if he can hit a shot or two. The dynamite comes through. Going to be amped up, pumping in a bit of that consistent damage. But the Atlanta Reign, they realize that, yeah, we're just going to wait around the corner. We've got plenty of time.
And that's the luxury of the team that's ahead in time bank, but it's another sound barrier for the Reign. The Gladiators, should I say. This time they really want to fight. Both sides go for Lucio ultimates, and that Immortality Field kept Space alive a little longer, but not long enough. A Blizzard here. OG caught inside that one now, playing inside that small room. He's going to try and back away as quickly as he can. Shields up now. Come off cooldown, and Birdring's in a pretty compromising position.
No one
has the
huge
range to take him down.
He has to go huge here, but
Oh,
has
no.
to stay
Oh,
alive.
no.
They
The
need
ult!
to touch it, but the wall pushes them away. Yep. And I could see that happening. The longer that team fight was drawn out, the more likely it was that the Atlanta Reign were going to just get away with murder there, pushing it into that final checkpoint. I do feel like maybe if the Gladiators had a clean disconnect in that last team fight, it may have stood a chance. Space may have had that Gravitic Flux available to try and recontest it, but it was a big if at that. They kind of lost that initial map when it came to their first defense, or their first attack, I should say, not having the opportunity to have that time bank that Atlanta Reign had. That's the thing. You spend so long on that point A attack, it just means that you have to be flawless in your execution for the rest of the map. And Gladiators, it was good. Don't get me wrong, it was good, and they showed a good defense in point B, but not enough.
Yeah, that last push from the Gladiators, or the last two, in fact, look pretty telegraphed, right? You saw them trying to come forward with Supercharger, then try and come forward with Sound Barrier. Pretty easy for the Reign to disengage and then pick a fight when it suited them a little bit better. So the Reign stay alive in the series. And I'll give you a hint. The next map, the Gladiators have a 1-5 record on. It is one of their weakest map types, is one of their weakest maps. Stick around, we'll fill you in on what that will be on the other side of these messages.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile.
Hey there. T-Mobile and Sprint have merged, and T-Mobile has a bigger and better network than ever before, with more towers, more engineers, and more coverage. Welcome to T-Mobile, America's largest 5G network.
Welcome to the Overwatch League! The San Francisco Shock! That is ridiculous! Houston Outlaws look to push across the finish line.
Did you catch that? To be the best in the Overwatch League, you also need to be the fastest. You need timing, reflexes, you need speed. And in Overwatch, you're only as fast as your connection. Xfinity X-Fi, the gamer-grade internet you need to dominate the competition.
Safe travels. Be good.
Hey there. Have a good one.
My, oh my, it looks like one of the Gladiators' best opportunities to shut the Reign out early has gone absolutely begging. Atlanta come out of the gates looking very, very good on King's Row, much more comfortable on the map in general as Brent, the Gladiators try for some sort of Winston Diva shenanigans on offense. It just doesn't quite work out.
Yeah, and I anticipated that the Atlanta Reign would be quite comfortable on King's Row, just on the basis that they were tending towards those more rushy, spawn, campy compositions on Havana, but they didn't really run that too much. They still ran the double shield with the Lucio, if that's worth anything, but in the end, the Atlanta Reign now have a bit of momentum behind them, and this is a team that we say time and time again, they wear their hearts on their sleeves. They are fully, really going to be playing off the back of their previous map wins and their previous maps, and if they can take this energy and really just slam it forward, they're going to be in a great position, and it's going to be, honestly, probably the best case scenario for them. They've made some substitutions, which signifies, you know, Saucy's coming in as well, which means we're probably going to be seeing a bit of Sombra being played here. And Pogpo is going to be in as well, which also tells us that it's going to be a bit of Winston going to be played here, because we are heading into Hanamura.
Right, and I kind of teased this one coming into the break as one of the Gladiators' sort of worst maps. They actually lost it yesterday as well, so they're 1-6 with a draw on Hanamura so far. The later rain, however, looking much better on this map, considering you know, generally hybrid assault and payload are all solid map types for them. They're 4 and 2 on this map, and all right, so Pogpo comes in, makes you think about the Winston. We've seen a couple of teams still want to opt towards the Winston in this era of sort of double shield with Lucio setups. The Shock got some value out of that one for sure earlier on here. The Atlanta Reign, I think, have, you know, always sort of been their best with the Rissa Sigma. Pogpo is almost like a throwback to sort of their debut as a, you know, as a team in the league, where he was sort of came out swinging on Winston and mostly Reinhardt in that very heavy Goats meta. But Bren, both your predictions about Saucy and Pogpo seem to be the case, at least by what they're hovering so far on offense. The Gladiators may want to play dive defense too, which could be exciting.
Yes, the Gladiators are looking to probably play towards their strengths. So despite the fact that they've got such a poor record, 1-6-1 when it comes to Hanamura, this should theoretically play into some of their strengths, especially if Birdrig can start to get on fire a little bit. You got OG on the Winston. It's nice. The trouble is, though, Mitch, that Hanamura is a map that requires a lot of coordination. I firmly believe that. And not just on the defense, but especially on this attacking side, I'm going to be paying close attention to the Gladiators. To try and break into that point B in particular, you need to be on point with your ult rotations, with your positioning. One slip up can mean that this composition just falls to the ground and crumbles to pieces like a badly burnt apple pie that was in the oven for too long, but you got to eat it anyway because you're at your nan's house. You don't want to upset her, you know? Yeah.
I feel that. Yeah, like I'd eat my nan's apple pie if I had to. You know, just don't want to upset her. The Gladiators here, I guess they eliminate on defense. They eliminate the vulnerability of an off-angle Sigma by having Space being able to. By the way, Space on Diva, pretty pog. But the fact that Space obviously can relocate pretty easily and can peel for OG if he needs to. So both teams identical compositions here. Ash, Sombra for both sides. And we'll see if those defense matrices cancel out a lot of dynamites over the course of this round.
Big Bionade onto OG here. From Dogman means there's an opportunity abound. Edison with the headshots from across the way as well. And this dive attempt onto Shaz, but Shaz has got the peel. Space so key actually on the Diva here for this first defense. He needs to be there to eat the dynamites. He needs to be there to peel for his supports when they get dove on. And he also needs to be there to try and eat up any enemy Bionades, which is a huge win condition for the Atlanta Reign.
Yeah, I feel like this composition is like a showcase of the awareness of Diva players, right? That Space has to be doing multiple things, both offensively and defensively. Now, OG gets to drop in just as Space is getting a ton of attention paid to him and goes in with a nano boost. Here, he was hit with a bio grenade, but he's fine. He can get out, he has a damage reduction, and he's safe again.
Yeah, notice how OG's like, he's weighing up. Do I want to take this health back? The fight's continuing. He weighs it up because he's like, oh, we actually want me to be low on HP so we can build up the next nano boost. This composition relies so much on rotating the Winston Primal Rage, the nano boost coming into it. That was a perfect execution there from the Gladiators, just using that nano onto OG. And look, he's almost built up this Primal Rage, which is going to be the next big one to try and break up what the Atlanta Reign are trying to aggress onto them with.
Considering we've seen no dive defense so far this series from the Gladiators, Brent, they're actually looking really quite well drilled at it. You see Pogpo again tries to tickle the high ground and is forced to just renew his attention onto the point. The OG has a primal range here. Saucy's forced to translocate, just got out alive. Gets himself the mega health pack as well. OG needs to get as much value out of this primal rage as he possibly can because Pogpo slapped! Nicely done by Shaz, shutting down Evelyn Winston with primal. Birdring, oh, that one goes begging. He'd be kicking himself, missing the killer Massa, who's able to bring Edison back into the fight. Hawk has a self-destruct here though. Now to the high ground. Spicy! Oh, he gets both supports! You can't ask for much more than that.
What an absolute fiesta that's occurring right now before our very eyes. And what a crucial resurrect from Big Goose onto OG as well, bringing him back into the fight. 500 health points. Such a high value res as well, because you bring in your main tank like that, it just completely turns the fight. What should have been a win there for the Atlanta Reign, even after Birdring was whiffing shots there onto Massa when he was getting his resurrect off. It doesn't matter, the Gladiators, so disciplined actually, they knew what they had to do, biding their time, and then they found the opportunities.
Once more into the breach for the Atlanta Reign, but Popo is hacked immediately. He got nano boosted, but he can't do anything with it. He can't access the high ground until now. He's lost most of the damage reduction and boost, and you see Bob just goes bumbling straight on in there. Edison had to be resurrected, and Bob is slapped to wake up a little bit and still split the Reign in half. The Gladiators have this one locked so far.
Yep, and self-destruct committed by Hawk as he tries to get the remake, but he ends up going down, so I don't really know what was going on with that one. OG Bionade on him means he's very low. Oh, Nano just in the nick of time. Beautiful timing there from Shaz. And this is a field day for OG. He's able to get so much work done, build up this Primal Rage, and most importantly, stay alive and get back to his team.
He was biotic grenaded. There was an enemy Sombra attacking him, but he trusted in his team. Shaz lights him up with an nano boost just when he needs it, and OG didn't even have to use the Primal Rage. The Gladiators are fighting on thin ice constantly. That is their domain, and they're doing it impressively now to make it look like figure skating world championships. Poco has a Primal Rage, though he will not have a nano boost for this next fight. It's do or die for the Atlanta Reign, Brent.
But the EMP goes up, but it only connects onto OG. And OG was Primal Raging, but not the target you're really hoping for. Hawk getting D-Mex is going to making it quite difficult. Kevin with the hack there is going to be moving Bob at least a thread of him away from this point just to cap it up. But this looks all Gladiators here. A beautiful hold from them. Able to stop the Atlanta Reign right in their tracks. And this comes down to, again, their understanding of the meta, their understanding of how to play this composition. It definitely fit all the points of strength for this team.
The Atlanta Reign's best opportunity to force a map 5 completely crumbles on a map that, in general, they've looked pretty good on. But from the back pocket, Bren, the Gladiators produced this double, this dive defense setup with the Sombra, and it looks so good. Let's have a look at the final moments here. This is Space and self-destruct. This is earlier in the round, catching both supports.
This is
Massa,
so good.
Forced down from behind that rock, actually by the impact of OG landing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yeah, OG's leap there at the end just to force the positioning of Massa. Massa would have been safe, but the impact... Oh my god, this team just working in unity. It's beautiful to see. Where has it been all season long?
I'm actually partially molding because we didn't see any of this from the Gladiators, and I understand on Havana it's like not the map for it, right?
Yeah.
At Kings Row, you could actually play dive defense, especially if your opponents are trying to do the same thing. Atlanta Reign look like they're actually weaker in the mirror with a composition that I kind of thought, well, they sub-Popo in for, so it feels like they've specifically practiced this setup, but now they have to full hold the Gladiators to prevent a loss here, and Atlanta Reign would have to be frustrated, especially because if we got to Lijiang Tower, it's a good map for Atlanta. I mean, every map from here on out is actually favoring them percentage-wise, and they have to get through this one, though.
It's a hard ask for them to be able to do that. You can see the Gladiators are going to be opting for, again, the composition that they just full held the Atlanta Reign on, running it in a mirror. And it is an easy win condition for them. They can see it in their sights. A single tick stands between them and closing out this series. Nice bio down to Popo. Yeah, going to be opening things up nice and early. But they don't actually collect the kill, so it's just going to mean that Dolman gets to build up that nano boost a little bit more. But Birdman, what an opening pick. What
this time? He hits it, Brett. He finds Massa. Missed him in that earlier round, but he gets to the crucial moment. That's 2 players removed for the Atlanta Reign, and crucially, a resurrect on an Ash that would have kept them going. And now the Reign are running on fumes. That Phoenix ain't coming out in the Ashes this time. Birdring is taking over the game, forcing Popo to run for the kills, but he can't run far enough away from the Gladiators now as they bring their aggression to point A. 1 tick, remember that's all they need. It has to be a nano boost on towards Popo now, but OG's got other business. He deals with Dogman and the recently returned Edison, and then turns his attention to the larger target. The Gladiators on a decisive way to end this series, and a crippling blow to the Reign, who was still trying to vie for a spot in that top tier heading into playoffs.
Beautiful showcase there from the Gladiators towards the end, and I said it in the middle of this series, but where was it, Gladiators, all season long? It would have been so good to see them play up to their strengths. I think the hero pool has kind of fallen into their lap to a degree as well, where they can play these roles that they're more comfortable with, but it's so nice to see that the Gladiators are actually feeling a little bit comfortable. Yes, the Atlanta Reign were making mistakes here and there, but it's just definitely a battle between two mid-table teams, two of these gatekeeper teams, if you will, where they have been throughout the season long, stopping some of the lower tier teams, sort of breaking into this middle of the pack. But what a slugfest of a series, and Gladiators can be very pleased with this match now because it's going to be really solidifying. I'm not sure of the mathematics behind it, but it should be making their chances of getting that 5th seed way more favorable.
Right. Obviously a little bit tougher with the loss previously to the Mayhem, but they're in the mix. What I'd be most impressed or happy about as the Gladiators is getting such a dominant victory on a map that in the past has sort of been something you've approached with caution, right? That hasn't always looked very good for you. I mean, OG ends that round with 8 final blows, Space with 11, the entirety of the Reign gets 6 as an entire unit, right? So Atlanta completely dominated there. That is such a good sign now because we know the Gladiators offer a really strong double shield, right? But then they can also play this kind of setup. Space gets 11 final blows on Diva, just is absolutely mental. I mean, that's incredible stuff. You've talked this whole series about teams playing to their strengths, Bren, and it really looks like the Gladiators got to do it on Hanamura.
Yeah, I mean, you see what happens, right? When the team is feeling good in terms of their coordination, their ultimates are perfect. You know, the trust, there was that moment in that series when OG had the anti-nade on him, so he couldn't be healed at all, and yet still had the trust in his team to take the team fight, and the perfect timing from Shaz to apply that nano boost and actually just heal him up so that OG just went for round 2 right in the choke point. That kind of trust and synergy is something that has been missing, honestly, all season long from the Gladiators. But if they're showcasing now that they've got what it takes, against a team like the Atlanta Reign, who are also in this middle of the pack, this is a good sign for them, I think, moving forward, you know, for their match that's going to be occurring tomorrow and also for the later playoffs, because, of course, that is what every single team is going to be having on their mind currently.
And, of course, our player of the match presented by Xfinity, definitely for his performance over the first couple of maps, is Birdring. When it looks like the Gladiators were just not going to make any more progress, it was this individual that stood up and took the game over. We got to see some Hanzo from him, some slick shots there. The Widowmaker on King's Row actually kept the Gladiators in that map before things ran out. Birdring's function in this composition, Bren, was to be the one that just goes and gets a bunch of frags. They're setting him up to have a lot of responsibility, and he lived up to it this series.
Yeah, enabling your star player is a strategy, honestly, as old as time when it comes to the Overwatch scene and just the Overwatch competitive scene. And it's good to see, honestly, because I remember that Birdring was a player that, especially off the back of last year, a lot of people were wondering, you know, well, is he still going to be able to put up some of these top performances? And he definitely showcased that today. I think Birdring
You got my attention? Be good. What can I do for you? See you soon. Well met. What's on your mind? Off with you. Here there. Hey, good.
Welcome. Safe travels.
Hi. Off with you. Great to meet you. What's on your mind? Inventory is full. I can't carry anymore. Too far away. Inventory is full. I can't carry anymore.
What's happening? Watch your back.
How are you? Watch your back. Keep your feet on the ground.
Well met.
Safe travels. How are ya? Watch your back.
Hi. See you soon. How are ya? Safe travels. What can I do for you? See you soon. How are you? Keep your feet on the ground. What's on your mind? Watch your back. What can I do for you? Off with you. Great to meet you. See you soon. I have the finest wares in the land. Off with you. What's on your mind? Watch your back. What's on your mind? Safe travel. What can I get for you today? Safe travels. Well met. Be good. How are ya? See you soon. No. See you soon. You got my attention. Off with you. What's on your mind? Safe travel. What's on your mind? Watch your back. Great to meet you. Keep your feet on the ground.
Interesting. Very good.
Hi. Safe travels.
Pleased to meet you. Be seeing you.